Hey, welcome to the stream, everyone who has joined in. Thank you for joining in, and I hope you're all doing great. So we're going to continue with our journey on the open focus timer that we have started last time. So I'm streaming this specific project every Wednesday, and this is the second stream that we're doing on that topic, on that project. On Fridays, I have my open source kind of stream. On a Friday last week, we streamed basically open source maintenance that I did on the Body Crouch open source project. And today we're gonna continue with our focus timer, which is the project that we started. And if you want to know what the project is about, just write !project into the chat and then you'll see it. We have basically a document where I go over it, or just watch the stream from last time. At the beginning, I basically explain what the project is about. So one thing that I forgot to do actually last time is to summarize the whole thing, or the whole steps that we did last time, because the whole purpose of the project in the end is because I want to be able to summarize always what I've done in a specific amount of time, and also I want to focus on that amount of time. And actually I'm currently doing this using Notion, and until we have the app ready, we have to use another way. And I think it makes sense also for the stream to do that kind of thing, because not everyone is watching every stream. So and also for me, because there is like 1 week pause between the streams, I think it makes sense to basically summarize it for myself even. And this is basically something I forgot last time, and I summarized it though after the stream. And I just want to go through the summary quickly so we remember what we worked on last time, and also some things as a hint to continue. And before we get started, just as a reminder, I'm not preparing these sessions at all, so this is not like a teaching kind of video. This is just me working on a specific project, like a hobby project. And you can just watch me and see how I'm working. You can learn from how I'm working. You can also ask me any questions if you have any. And if you're just not an iOS developer or something like that yet, then you can just have a look what I'm doing to just kind of get an idea what iOS development feels like and what kind of tasks I'm doing. Okay, but let's get to the summary. And we start with the, there's like 4 sections: progress summary, problems and blockers, learnings, ideas, and next steps, or continue here. I already talked about these things last week, but now I have them written down. So here, what we did last time is first, I explained the rationale and the features of the project that I want to create. Next, we created a project on GitHub, and there's actually a link to it here. Then we created a project in Xcode, which is a different step, and then we pushed it on to GitHub. Then we kind of cleaned up the project structure that Apple creates by default. And also we wanted to apply the modularization approach that Point3 has shown in their episode. So if you want to check it out, this is the full link. And this is something that is going to help us work on specific features in really like a small kind of scope, and to be able to really test it independent of any other parts of the application. And this is something that I'm trying the first time for real, so we might also learn something here and there. Then we configured Apple Swift format. This is like a tool to check the formatting of your code. And we configured a git pre-commit hook to make sure that it's run before we commit, so we can never commit with like warnings or errors in the Swift format, as it will automatically correct it. Then we configured a library called sfsave symbols. SF symbols, just to remember, are all these icons that Apple provides. So you can see like a lot of icons here that we can use in our app. Unfortunately, referencing them in Xcode with the default way is unsafe, so we have integrated a library to make it safer. And something similar for localizations as well, by using Body Crouch, and same for references like images and colors by using Swiftgen. We configured them all. But we had also some problems. So one problem we had that happened multiple times is Xcode crashed a couple of times, mostly probably related to modularization. I mean, it's crashing also on like just normal app projects. But in particular, it didn't also work even though we just extracted smaller parts into their own packages. So we might have to deal with that, and maybe we'll find a workaround there as well. Then we extract the core data to a Swift package, and that was not kind of trivial because the default setup created by Apple's template on Xcode basically refers to it being in a specific place and it being in the same module as the app project. But as we are extracting everything basically out of the app project, we also extracted the core data structure. And yeah, we had to adjust some of the paths there. Then we worked on referencing assets. And for some reason it seemed to be broken. So when showing off how to reference the color was always white, and we are referencing them from a Swift package, so something related to there that we might have fixed today. And build scripts also seem to have path problems. So when we ran the project, when we built the project, what typically happens is we run some build scripts there for body crouch and Swiftgen, making the references that I mentioned above safer. And that for some reason it didn't work. So yeah, we have to see what we can do there. Then it was not clear how to add body crouch and Swiftgen to S script to the packages, because we have like an app project where we have add them where it doesn't work, but adding them to packages also is not clear. It should be possible somehow technically, because Swift Package Manager did get some features that should be able to do that, but it's not clear if the tools need to support them, if I need to write something out myself. So these were like kind of the problems that we had that we might need to have a look at later. Not today necessarily, but we will also check today. Then we had some learnings. One was which I mentioned above already, that when you set up core data in a Swift package, then the NS persistent container needs some path fixing. So we had to reference specifically bundle.module, which is important for packages, otherwise the paths won't work. And lastly, we have the section next steps, or continue here, which is just like the things that I had in mind after the last stream that we might need, or we might want to continue with. So we know where to start today. And one was fixing the build issues with body crouch and Swiftgen, and possibly by removing the build scripts. That was my thought there. Then we want to fix the color and asset references where we had white, which I mentioned already here in the problems. And we want to apply the composable architecture to the timer feature, because currently, I think if I remember correctly, the timer basically doesn't run, so it doesn't go down, and we want it to go down. And also every other kind of logic on that screen, we want to use the composable architecture, which has some specific structures for doing that. And yeah, implementing the timer so it counts down. Yeah, I think it makes sense to start with these things. So first, maybe fixing the issues. And then this is also an issue, so maybe we can fix them together somehow. And then applying our composable. I think that's good steps to start here. And yeah, let's get started doing it. So let me open the project, and I'm using git fork as my source control tool, which is like the git GUI. And let's just open the project in Finder. Here it is. Let's open the Xcode project. Cool. So before we get started, let's just build and see if we still have these errors. I'm expecting to see some errors now. And you can always see that I'm building here above at the top. Yeah, it will take some time. You can also go, okay. There, okay, the build is succeeding, but we see some errors in the scripts. And it specifically says no localizable strings files. I think we checked last time that everything was set up correctly. So I think that was a path issue. So we had already, like in the summary here, the idea was maybe to remove them as build scripts, and I think we can do that. We can just use git create pre-commit hooks for them as well for now, until we have like more time to fix them. But we want to first get some results. So I'm going to just move out the body crouch updating part here into our build script. Or let's just copy for now. Let's extract them to the build script. This is basically what is run whenever I commit. Like before I commit, I run this file as a pre-commit hook. So everything that I have in here basically gets run. I see I already have the update there. So update and lint. Yeah, I'm already doing that. And Swiftgen also, I already run that before committing. So maybe I don't need to do anything anymore. I can just remove these. Let's just do that. So it's not going to be the pro localization workflow that I have written about in my blog post, but we will get that working later sometime. But for now, let's just get into a state where we don't see errors all the time. iOS app, macOS app, and I believe we haven't done anything specific in the packages. Yeah, cool. Let's see if it's building without any warnings or errors. No, okay, no errors, but we do have some warnings which we added ourselves. So we have some warnings on purpose that we need to do to work on later. And we have this compiler error coming from here. Okay, we'll have a look at that later, but basically we did remove something, so let's actually make a commit with that. We removed body crouch and Swiftgen as build scripts. So remove body crouch and Swiftgen build scripts due to path issues. They are already part of the build script.sh file. So a git pre commit hook can be used instead, for now at least. Let's push that commit. Great. Next, we have the timer view. Okay, so basically we've done this now. Also, I remember we actually created a to-do list here, so maybe we should check that out as well. Okay, create an app icon, then checking out how to integrate Swiftgen and body crouch in packages. I think that makes sense, but these are like more long-term to-dos. Body crouch not working as a build script. Yeah, this is basically something which we not really solved, but it's nothing we need to do anything anymore. I think this will solve it basically. So let's go back to our list here. Then we want to fix the color asset issue. Let's get on that. See what we can do there. So to see the problem, let me go to the which package is that? This is the open focus timer feature. Yeah, timer feature panel. Let's actually change the order here so we can find them at the top. So this is our timer feature, and then we can go to our timer. I can also just getting used to this timer feature. Now we are on the right target. Now I can try to build. Okay, build succeeded. Let's try to get the preview running. I think this didn't work last time, but we might be lucky today. Yes, there we go. Nice. Now we have a preview here. I think it was working last time. Not the whole time, but was working at the end. And the issue was, I think we have a resources. I think this folder, it's a leftover from body crouch. Let's delete it. Cool. Resources, we have the assets, and in the assets we have color. We created a sample color. It's this one here. It should be red or yellow. And let's try to apply it to some text here. Foreground color. I mean, basic color should work, but we want to use our color references, which are not working because we haven't imported resources, of course. So now sample, there we go. Well, let's see what this looks like. Should be red or yellow now. Okay, there we go. This was the problem. It's actually not white even. It's what color is it? Is it like clear color? That's weird. Let's see, this is creating a color of name sample. We might need to also reference the color via the module here as well. Could that be? So let's try to do it manually. So we're doing like color. We have to specify the bundle. Name plus bundle. I see. Let's try that. So we have the name, we have the bundle, we say bundle.module. Same issue as with core data we had. We have to reference the right bundle. Now, because I don't have Swiftgen or Body Crouch set up to run as build scripts, when we build, this shouldn't change. And it doesn't. Nice. Now the preview should actually show the right color, I hope. Still not happening. Okay, I don't really know. We could try by adding first in the same one here. Let's just create a SwiftUI view. And there we have some text. Let's make the reference directly in this project. Let's do foreground color, color.sample. See what the this thing is looking on the resources target. Let's build, which succeeds, and see the preview. Here it's working. So if we're referencing it inside of the package, it seems to work. Now we might just have a caching issue. So I will remove this file again. And we'll go back to our timer view. Let's close these other things. So we have the timer view here. And maybe I just clean build. So let's clean first, build again. And let's try to refresh. Oh, we have to select. This is also kind of a hassle that we always have to change the target, the scheme I mean, with this modular approach, but at least it works. So it's currently building for the previews and it succeeded. I don't know why it's still not visible. That's weird. So if you change it to any other color, like color red, does it work? Yes. So for some reason, when we reference this and say sample, it's an invisible color. It's red now. It is red now. And if we change the scheme to light mode, it should be red. If we change it to dark mode, it should be yellow. Not quite working as expected. But is it red because I chose red before? And let's try blue. And let's remove the second preview here, which I added accidentally. Now we have... Oh, Samigun, hola! Welcome to the stream. Thank you very much. How are you doing? How is work going? Okay, so it's working now with blue. Now let's try color again with a sample color. If it turns red, then it's working. But nothing is happening. Yeah, definitely something is not working here. The question is, will it work if we run the app? Let's try that. Let's try running the app. I think we did have a way to navigate into the screen. Oh, build is failing. Why is it failing? No errors. It's failing but no errors. That's always great. It says it's still building. Build succeeded. Oh, it is running. It was still building. I'm fine having dinner. Have a nice dinner. How is the app not starting? Or is it? Okay, it's starting right now. Taking some time. Okay, this is the focus timer, and if we want to show the feature, okay, it's working. It's actually working. It is yellow, which is the expected color for dark mode. So we have in the images for the sample color, oops, in the colors for the sample color, dark mode is yellow-ish. So the color reference is actually working. That's great. Why was the preview not working though? So preview is not working. Let's try again. Timer feature. Wouldn't be great if that wasn't working. Maybe we can find a solution for that. still blue. What happens if I close the entire project and just open it again? Will it remember that it was blue? Or will it fix it? Or will it be invisible again? The big question. Let's try again. Oh, hello ACSC, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? Trying again. Let's build actually, maybe even the build will fail. No, build succeeds. So the previous should also succeed. Let's see the diagnostics. Message sent, failure for, yeah, just cryptic error, not really useful. We don't really know why it doesn't work. This is the Xcode magic. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, I think every iOS developer kind of hates that, if that happens. But looks like we have to give up here. Maybe it's actually due to the color. Yeah, it is actually because the reference somehow doesn't work. And if I add it back, then it just doesn't re-render for some reason. Let's see what it could be. So we have color reference here. Have a great May too, ACSC. What are you eating? Both of you. Okay, color image sample. How can we further try to fix that? Let's see about the initializers. Maybe we can specify even more. So we can specify red, green, blue. Yeah, not great. White, CG color. I think the module, the bundle thing is already the right thing to do. Bundle.module. And it's using this module. We should actually, yeah, first, before we get into more details, we should make sure that this applies whenever Swiftgen is run. So we have to change our stencil file here, which creates that. And here we can basically just search for the color. So whenever color is basically created, you can see it's just creating it like this. And we can just say something like, oops, something like bundle.module. Now in our case, this is always going to be right. So let's just do it like that. And the same for image as well. So now when we run Swiftgen, it should actually generate now this output and this output. And to see that, let's just remove these. Let's go to the terminal and let's just run Swiftgen. It says it has written to this assets file, and as we can see, it worked. And it should actually also, yeah, it worked on both. For strings, do we have to do something for strings? It's already saying bundle token. Oh, it's using a bundle token here. Maybe this is something we need to do. If Swift package, bundle module, else bundle for bundle token cell. Ah, so maybe Xcode is somehow handling it differently when it's not Swift package, and maybe because when we run it from, but actually when we run it from the app, it was working. I eat salmon and try to listen to you with my boy. Greetings to your boy. Salmon sounds nice as well. Have a nice one. Okay. Do you already have the Pokemon game set up to play it? We have the bundle here, and we could actually try to apply the exact same thing just to see maybe it fixes it for whatever reason. But if it doesn't, then we don't have to deal with many things. So what they were doing here is just calling into the bundle token the bundle. This is like the specific bundle that they were using, and it should be the same result actually, but you never know. So oops. So let's just try it out and see if we're now in this screen, if it works nicely. So the feature is building. Let's resume the preview. And I expect this to be red or yellow, but it's not happening. We go for color, orange. It works. Go for color, sample. Yeah, should be red, yellow. I think this is dark mode, so it should be yellow. Not happening. Okay, this is not great. Our previews aren't properly working, but it's just the previews inside of the packages. So we could continue because in the app it will work. We just have to make sure that the app continues to build. And for some reason the preview works now. What if we try something like this, but find a solution, a different one? I don't think I have an idea here how to fix it. So actually bundle module is correct. And we can remove this here. And actually in our assets file, we could also fix the strings file by removing all this here and just replace this by bundle.module, because in our case it's always bundle.module. So let's see the bundle token part. Oh, it's not directly in here. Oh, it's the assets one. Okay, we're just using the default one, so then let's keep it. Let's not make it overly complicated, because this should work. Great. We could also just try the default one. Maybe the default one will work for assets, but I think we had to use a custom one because we have split the images from the colors and we wanted to have like a shortcut like color. Okay, we will keep it. This is bundle.module. And yeah, we'll just continue and we'll deal with this. Maybe we can do something like, if this doesn't work, then try color.blue. Does this work for the preview? No, it doesn't change anything because it should be working. This is weird. I don't know why this doesn't work. We still have to fix it. But we have made progress. So let's actually write it into the summary already. So let's create the summary of today because we have already fixed this basically. Let me create a new window. So for today's summary, we're creating this page. I'll use the session template that I have created, which is just these 4 sections. And on the progress, we can now just add this. Fix building issues with Bodyguard and Swiftgen by removing build scripts. This is something we've already done. Then we tried to find a solution also for the color reference, and we did find one, but it didn't work for SwiftUI previews. So fixed issue with color references when running the app. Again, bundle.module was the fix. But the problem is SwiftUI previews still can't show colors properly sometimes, causes build to fail, causes preview to fail. Okay. Let's also commit that. I think we did make some changes here. So we first moved the timer feature up in the list, and this added the scheme menu to the project. Then we added the bundle.module part here. We imported it in the timer feature to use the colors, and we updated the asset stencil. That all makes sense. So this is all for fix color references, color and I think it's assets actually. Asset references from I think everywhere. Sorry, in-app project. SwiftUI previews sometimes still not working. In packages like timer feature. Cool. Samigan, why is this simulation not in iPhone style? Is it a watch app? Good question. So let's go back into the timer view. So this here, you're referencing this here, I'm assuming. This is just a preview of this view, and I can actually control the size of this manually here. And currently it's just using the space it needs. So it is configured to be, I think it uses the target that I set up here. So I can set up here a Mac or any iPhone and things like that. And I have set up the Mac, and on the Mac, if you run an app, it tries to just be the size that it needs to be. And I'm not sure why it is full that height, but if I just change it to an iPhone 8 for example, you will actually see that the preview updates to an iPhone, or it should update to an iPhone. It doesn't happen now. I think it's still building, so let's wait until it's done. Okay, let's change it back. Okay, what I just said maybe isn't true, but if I basically this, I can control it. Let's put it like this. I can control the size. I can say like frame, width 500, height 500, and no alignment. So this is basically the preview. Wow, everything's crashing here. This is basically generating the preview here, and now it should update to be 500 of size. And I will comment this out. Oh, now it works. So the reason why it wasn't, I was right. What I was just saying is right. The only issue why I wasn't updating is because we have still this color referencing issue, which I will fix later. But now you can see whatever I choose here, it updates to the size of that. I will just zoom out so you can see the full screen. And now it's building for that, for the iPhone 12. Now you see the iPhone 12 here. So you can just choose whatever device you want to see. I can also use the Apple TV, which I'm not sure if I have that set up as a target. No, I haven't. So this is a Mac and iPhone app mostly. And I can also set it iPad Air, for example. And the size that I set up here is actually then the size of the view here, the timer view. But as you can see, it ends here. So this is the 500 height that I've set. If you want to see that, I can just add a color, background color, orange or blue. Then you'll see what the thing is actually looking like. So this is now height 500 and width 500, but because it doesn't need the full 500 width, it's becoming less than that. Or maybe if I move the background color here, it should be the full. Yeah, now you see it works, because I've said I haven't used max width. I used specific numbers here. So I hope that answers your question. And let's get back to coding, and maybe let's actually use an iPhone here as a preview. Let's use iPhone 13 or iPhone 13 mini. It's always great to have the preview in on a device that is a little smaller than most users, because then you will see if there is any issues with like not enough space to show something. So using iPhone 13 mini here, should update in a second. Still building. And the color reference really is an issue with the SwiftUI previews. I really need to fix this somehow. Great. So this is the time review. What do we want to do? What else do we want to do today? Let's actually give this a title. Open focus timer part 2. That's basically what I called this on Twitch. So we also wanted to apply composable architecture, so we have the timer feature properly implemented. Let's do that then next. The color issue we'll fix later. So we have adjusted, we have removed this. Let's actually apply this and amend it to the previous one. I have to leave. Have a nice stream. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining in. And yeah, have a nice rest of your day. See ya. I'll actually merge it into the previous change, so because it's basically part of that. It's not a real new change. And then I have to force push because I'm changing the commit. Cool. So next up, let's start with setting up a composable architecture in a timer feature, timer view. And basically I want to turn it into a feature. Currently we only have the view here, And what we want to have is the full composable architecture. And let's have a look at the architecture. So the composable architecture, Swift composable architecture. We can find the GitHub project here. And let's just scroll down to see basically what it consists of. So if you want to read this, please do it. And there is a great, yeah, basically these guys who have created this thing, they are doing this with like a paid video service. But the 4 parts that they have linked to here, which is basically a summary of this whole architecture, they are free to watch. So if you want to really learn the whys and the details, definitely check out these videos. They're really, really great. And basically, yeah, this is what I want to show. So the things we need is state, action, environment, reducer, and store. And these are the parts that we now have to create step by step to use this method. And what they typically tend to do is do everything in one file. I typically split it to multiple files. I'm not sure if I want to maybe try out their approach in one file. But then, yeah, this is going to grow. I don't like that approach, so I want to actually create separate files for each. So definitely one for the reducer. I'm just calling that timer reducer. And we'll need to import composable architecture here. And I will implement the reducer. It's just implement it as a global variable. So let reducer, and then we just create a reducer. And we'll do that later. For now, let's just keep this code like that and create the other files because they're easier to start with. Definitely need the state, so we'll do something like import composable architecture, and we'll have something like the I think it's a struct. We'll have timer state, and we'll also have an enum that is basically specifying all the possible actions that we can do in the screen. I will just call it timer action. And because they are state and action, I typically keep them in one file. I don't want to have too many files here, although maybe I want to split it up. But they're typically so related, state and action, that I want to keep them together. And I'm just going to call this the store, because that's also what how they are saved together in the composable architecture in one store. So timer state, timer action, and let's just go for some state fields here already. So we do have an app, and let's go to our timer view. We can see we have like the title label here, which probably is just a view thing. Stabbed, ahoy Jihad, welcome Stabbed, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? How are things going? How was your day? So this is the label. We don't need to, this is not really state because it never changes, but this is state, right? This changes over time. And this is clearly something that a user does. So this is action, and that's what we want to do. So you can have a start action, and we already know that from last time, that it can also be changed to a stop action. So we have these 2 actions. So the actions are case stop button pressed and start button pressed. Maybe the order should be the other way around. Quite productive, and also Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel released today. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel? Is that a game? What do you mean by that? But nice that you had a productive day. That sounds great. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Let me search for that. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Oh yeah. Used to be on Steam. Yeah, it's a game. The game from Konami. Free to play game from Konami. Cool. I have to check that out. So did you play it already? Or are you already a master? Okay, timer state. So we have the time that we want to show here. So the state field basically could be the time left, right? The time left until it's at 0, or the current timer value, something like that. Let's just go for a variable. Let's just go for time left. And then I'm going to use time interval as the type. And I think we already have some field in the view. There we go, timer is running. This is also something that was important. This is also state. You can see that it's state because we are putting at state here. So it's easy to recognize, and we can actually just extract them directly one by one. So let's just use the same names as they are. And here time left is a time interval, and we started with 25 minutes. Cool. Then I see there are some warnings, extract into state. This is something that we just did. And here it says use minutes through HandySwift. Yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. Not yet, but Thomas will probably get no sleep today. I can imagine that. I can totally imagine. I can totally see him playing the whole night. And then during the next workday as well. Okay. Use a minute. Yeah, I wanted to integrate HandySwift. So let me talk about HandySwift for a second. So basically HandySwift is a... Let's use this. HandySwift is a library that basically states that it's adding handy Swift features that didn't make it into the Swift standard library. It's basically providing some niceties to Swift development, things that I typically tend to reuse very often. And if it goes to usage, you can see a lot of extensions added here and a lot of useful types. And the specific thing that I wanted to use here is the time interval. I think it's the double extension. I'm not even sure if it's documented here. Let's see, minutes. Yeah, it's documented. So time interval extension. This is specifically what I want looking for to use. And you can see that I have extended time interval in this library to like be more readable, basically. So what we're currently doing is so let me delete these. What we're currently doing is we're using a time interval, and then we're just doing 60 times 25. And the time interval itself, it doesn't say what the unit is. It's not clear if it's minutes, seconds, whatever. I just used to know, happen to know that it's seconds, so I can say 60 seconds times 25 is 25 minutes. But with HandySwift, I can just say minutes 25. And so let's integrate HandySwift here. Let's first add a dependency. No need for the name. Let's copy the name of the URL to HandySwift, which is the HTTPS one that we need here. And the requirement is from a specific version, and let's use the latest, which is 3.4.0. 3.4.0. And like I described last time, I like to just copy the description of the library itself into here, so everyone who checks this out immediately knows what this is about, doesn't have to check the link. And then let's also make sure that this is ordered by or alphabetically, which means H belongs at the top here. Cool, and then basically we add the HandySwift reference to everywhere we need it, which is in our case the timer feature. And again, let's do it in a alphabetical order. And now we have HandySwift available to be imported. HandySwift, and now we can just say minutes 25. So that's that. We have started extracting these things. Okay, this code obviously won't work yet. We will get it working, but this is the state, this is the action. Let's actually stay with these small things. And then the reducer, we have to implement that as well. The reducer basically to get going with this. Let's go within it. So you can see it just takes like a closure, which gets three variables, which are the state, the environment, and I'm not sure. Let's actually do this with some sample code. I don't know this out of my head. So let's actually, what I recommend everybody using the composable architecture is to just download the whole framework, because basically in the framework itself you find a lot of sample codes, and you can just go to example, or you just open the composable architecture workspace file. And you can always like check out how things are solved here. And I love these case studies where you can always see some code. Let's go to SwiftUI case studies, and then getting started, let's just go for something simple. Like they actually have a counter example here. Let's open that and see for the reducer. There you go. So you have to specify the state type, the action type, and an environment. So we haven't created an environment yet. Let's do that as well. Let's comment this out for now. So we'll create so let's do it as a struct for now, timer environment. And I like to shorten this with env. And timer environment. Basically, here you can basically add everything that you want to pass on to for testing purposes mostly. So you don't have global state in your reducers and things like that. So what we might want to add here is the main thread. What we might want to add here is I don't know, anything that is needed from environment. We'll set this up later. So for now, I'll just keep this empty. We'll set it up when needed. So let's continue. We have the reducer, we have to specify the three types here, and then we get the state action, and the third one is the environment. I don't know why they probably don't need it here. So let's just copy that. This is our timer reducer. The type is of the state is timer state. And we have the timer action and the timer environments. Cool. Now we have implemented reducer, and basically what we do in the reducer is we switch over state. So let's just go back here. You can see action. I mean, we switch over the action and we react on whatever action happened. So I'm going to say switch action. And then our actions are start button press. Okay, there's a typo here. Let's rename it. Pressed. There we go. This is one action, and then we can do something here, and we have not implemented that yet. So yeah, let's just put not yet implemented. And actually we have to do something here, so I'll just call fatal error not yet implemented. And then the other case we have is stop button pressed. And same here, let's copy that. So this is now our reducer. Very simple reducer. It doesn't do anything yet, but we have the structure that switches over the action. And has no member. Okay, the rename didn't properly work. Let's fix it. Oh, it did work. I think this is not the right. I don't think this is the right error. Okay, it disappeared by rebuilding. Cool, this is the store with the state and the action. And now the magic happens in the view where we bring this together. And you can see the view always has a store. And the store, this is like the type that has a lot of features on it in the composable architecture. And let's add the store here to our view. And our state type is timer state. Our action type is timer action. Now we have the store here, and what we need to do in the composable architecture, you can see it here in the example, is we need to call into, this is a view, it's called with view store. They named it, so it's not obvious that it's a view, but they implemented it as a view. If you click into this, you'll see that it's just a view of type view. So this is like the structure, and then with view store is of type view, as you can see. So this is just a view, and what this does is that it gives us like some magic that makes sure that we can do some bindings and things like that. So let's just copy this over and just use it at the top of our body. And all the body code that we have written here, we'll just indent it by one, and let's do it like that. Now we have the view store references into the store. And then we have the view store available inside of this, and we have to import composable architecture in order to be able to do this. Now let's just keep it at the top and bottom. Now this should build. No exact matches in call to initializer. Did we forget something? This is obviously okay. Now what we can see what we need to do is all the references to state that we had in the view, we need to make through the view store. So now we have the view store, and the view store gives us access to the state here. So actually, if we could go to state.time left, but the view store provides this directly. So time left should actually work. Same here, view store.time left. What else doesn't compile? Timer is running, of course, it's now also in the view store. And this reference makes sure that SwiftUI always updates whenever the value changes. View store.timer is running. View store.timer is running. Oh, we are not allowed to set this. So this is the action part. And that's the interesting part now. So timer is running equals to true. This is logic that we have now in the view. Now we can extract it out of the view into the reducer. And that was the stop button pressed. So basically we do it here now, but we call into state, which we have available here. So we change the state in this case right here. And we have to return an effect, and we don't want to have any effects here, side effects or something, so we just return none for now. But we are now changing the state here on this action, but we have to tell the button now that it needs to inform the view store and just basically send the action to it. And what we can do here is view store does send, and then we can just select the action, stop button pressed. This way the view informs the reducer that something has happened, so an action has happened, but it doesn't have logic here. It just redirects the logic into the reducer. And the same we do here as well. View store.send into start button pressed. And then in the reducer, we add this logic here. And here it's going to be state.timer is running and equals false. Let's build and let's see if that's working. Okay, still failing. Referencing requires the timer state conform to equatable. Let's do that quickly. Build again. Return from initializer without initializing all stored properties. So we have this initializer here, and we need to provide a store to it. Let's add it here, and now we just say self.store equals store. Yeah, and then this type also isn't public, so this is all running into package topics. We need to make them all public. And now build fails. Missing parameter for store. We need to provide a store now in the preview, and we can actually just initialize the store with an initial state. Now we'll just call init here. The reducer, we already have our reducer, so we just call into timer reducer. And the environment, timer environment, I'll also just call init. It's empty right now anyways. Let's give this a little bit more structure. Cool, looks a little better. Actually, we can extract this out. Maybe the whole store. I think that's fine. So private let store equals timer store. Oh, it's just a store. Store. Does that make sense? Timer instance of timer store cannot be. This is static. Private static let store. And let's also make the reference to self explicit. Here we go. Now if I run this, and we did already have some logic where when we clicked start, it would change the button. Let's see if that works. I'm clicking start, and now this is crashing. Where is it? Previewing in Xcode previews. Okay, I'm not sure what's just happened here. Okay, the preview doesn't work. But basically what we want to see if this changing of the state works. So let's just run the app. I'm going to go into Mac app. And let's run it. Build failed. So we see that there is some issues here because the timer view no longer just accepts the init method. Instead, we need to do more than that. So let's rewrite this navigation link. I mean, this is not proper navigation, it's just for testing. And we have used this one here. Stay with the title. And the destination now is a little more complex because we need to create a timer view here. And when we create it, we have to set up the store. Like in the previous, we're just going to call into init. Just call into also on the timer state, just call into init. For now, we're not doing much there. And we're actually going to have a problem here because we didn't make the initializer of the state public yet. And also timer reducer, I'm not sure if that's public. And the environment we'll just initialize. Let's make them all public. So the reducer, we just say public let timer reducer. In the store, let's make this public, let's make this public. And now we need also the public initializer. Let's generate the member-wise initializer, that's the fastest way to do it. Cool, now we have access to these and it also uses the default values, which is great. Do we need actually an initializer, a custom one? Is it always 25 minutes? Not necessary, so let's just use it. And last but not least, or should it already work? Let's try building the app again. Still having issues. So constants cannot be declared public because its type uses an internal type. Which part is internal? I think yes, this is internal. Let's build again. Now it's nearly working. But the initializer here is internal still, public init. Let's build again. Now this code is obviously wrong. And this says it's internal, it shouldn't be. There we go, I think it's building now. Yes, let's run the app. Cool, it was some work to get it done. But maybe we can create a template out of the one feature or view that we have now implemented. The app should start now. Here. It's still building. Now it's starting. Let's show the timer view. Let's see if the start button works. Yes, so it does update. And the cool thing is, actually, Swift Composable Architecture has a feature where we can even see these the actions happening here. I haven't done it yet, but we can actually go to the reducer and just say we want to debug it. And we can also say we just want to debug the actions. If we do the full thing, let's run this like that, and you'll see what happens. And we can actually keep this on, even on the store, because I will not do anything there. So I just showed this, I just click start, stop, start, stop. And we can see everything that happened to our state. So received an action, which was stop, and then the timer state changed from false, so the minus shows the state before, to true, which is the state after. And after clicking start button pressed, it changed from true to false again, and from false to true again. So you can basically see that things are changing. You can see the data that is changing. And we can see that the time left is not changing, and that's definitely something that we want to do over time. And the action is going to be something like time has passed in that case. We can also just say debug actions here. Because if we have a lot of state later, we can get really a lot of data here, and it's not clear anymore what's happening. So if we're in just with debug actions, and we open the feature, say start, stop, start, stop, start. We just see the actions that happened. And then we can look into the code to see. So whatever we need, what level we need, we can do that. And I typically like to keep the debug actions always on. And I only remove the actions part if I really want to dig into this reducer specifically, maybe when there's something wrong. But this is something I typically tend to keep always open. So I can always look back into what happened in the application. So I would say the extraction from the view into the reducer and store is basically finished. And basically this is now working. This is now the application of the composable architecture and extraction of these parts. Obviously one thing that's still missing is the environment, and we'll need that for the timer in a few minutes, but this is basically the setup. So let's commit that. I think it's worth already mentioning that. Let's have a look at the changes. So we have added Handy Swift, which makes sense. Then we improved the navigation link because we needed a store here, which is also fine. We introduced a reducer. Code looks good enough to me. Yeah, we can keep it. And then we have the timer store with the is running state and time left. I'm not sure if they need to be public, to be honest. Do we ever need to reference it from outside of the timer feature? I don't think so. So let's actually make them internal. So we can't change them until we actually need to change them. Timer is running. This is also a state that when we open the timer, it should never run, right? It should always be not running. Or maybe we will reopen the app while the timer was running and then we have to set it to true. Yeah, it could be true. So let's keep it here. And the time left is also, yeah, same thing. So let's keep them here. That makes sense. Let's make sure that it's still working. Build the app. We can open, we can start, stop. Cool. So let's add that. Reducer, store, there we go. Now they are internal. The actions are public, and we have removed these things here. Adjusted some small things. We have basically indented this code and referenced everything from the view store. And then we updated also the preview provider. And this with the version. Perfect. So what we've done is extract logic and state from timer view by applying TCA, the composable architecture. Let's just mention the GitHub project here as well. Okay, that's a step forward. And whenever we commit, the Swift format is running, so it might change things. And Swift format likes to put all parameters of an init method in their own line. So it adjusted this one here, and same here. And I will just amend it to the previous commit, so I don't have an extra commit for the changes there. Now it looks good and I can push. We have made progress. Let's actually document that as well in our Notion. So we have extract, and let's actually, this is like a git commit basically. So maybe I could just copy the commit description in this case, at least. Seems like a valid thing to do. And TCA I can link to here. Do we have any problems here? Not really, we just have to continue. So we are in the reducer here, store here, view here. Next thing we want to do, we want to basically make currently the app is not counting, and we want to make the app count. And this is related to time, so we have to somehow, I mean, there's something called a timer in iOS development. We could just use that. So Apple developer timer. We could just use this. But if we just use this directly, this is a timer that fires at a certain amount of time. We could fire it every second, and then we could count down. But the problem is this isn't really testable. It's not very testable. And actually the composable architecture has a solution for that as well. And we're going to use that in a minute, but let's make, now let me drink something first. So we want to get into the timer, and I'm not sure if it's documented here how to control time. I definitely remember from the video, but they have documentation here. There's the store, there's the effects, and I'll see. I remember once I see it, how it works. Okay, it's not here. If I remember correctly, they were using something that is part of one of their... I remember. It's a part of their case studies, of course. So that's, as I said before, it's always great to have a look into these here. So there is something, there is actually a timer in here where you can see how this works. And basically what they use is a library that they have written themselves, which is based on Combine. So Combine is the declarative or reactive kind of programming thing implemented by Apple. And they basically have created this wrapper in the Combine schedulers. That's what the package is. So we need the Combine schedulers package, which is already part of the composable architecture. And they have implemented this any scheduler of type with a time scheduler. So let's actually add this to our environment. You can see this is one of the environment things that we need to be able to control in the tests. So let's actually copy this and just add it to our environment as well. So we have the timer environment here, and we need a main queue there. And this doesn't need to be public immediately, but we definitely want to have access. Just add it here. We need to be able to create it. Cool. What next? So as you can see, let's actually run this. Maybe we can also, it's going to make it easier to understand what this actually does. So let's run this on an iPhone here. Now we're going to have a look at the timers example. So you can see they have some kind of timer on their type effect. And effect is, yeah, let's first show the view. Okay, it's building. Effect is basically what the reducer that we have here is returning. So I'm returning a non-effect here, but I can also after every action return a different kind of effect. And effect is a type that basically wraps any possible side effects that you can have in your logic. And that can be, for example, network call, which is a side effect that's starting and then it can finish later. It can also be a timer. It can be anything that is basically not done synchronously, but asynchronously in some way and has some side effects. And if we go into that example here, here's the timers example. So this demonstrates how to work with timers. I just start the timer here, and you can see it's like there's like a kind of a small animation there. I can stop, and this is basically something that we want to implement, but the other way around. But this is already giving us an idea of how to basically fire a timer every, in this case, 1 second. And you can see, and they have the action toggle timer button tapped, which in our case is going to be the start action. And then basically they do some state changes, and then they basically respond with the effect. And we need to do that as well. So the reason why we need the main queue is because we need to make it run on a specific queue. And if we use the main queue on the app itself, basically it's going to make sure that it's running in the main thread, and it's going to also make sure that yeah, it's running with real time. But if in our test, we don't want to wait full second. And then in our test, we can specify a different queue here, which is going to be different scheduler actually. And then it's going to run right away and we can control the time there. Hard to explain without examples, but you'll see over time. Or just watch their video. But we have to continue. So here, when we do the start button pressed, what we actually want to do is we want to fire off a timer. So I'm actually going to return an effect. And I'm going to call into the timer here. So I have to give it an ID, and that's to be able to cancel it, and they just use their own type here. So they have this type. I'm going to do it the same way, just creating the timer ID type. In our case, it's actually also a timer ID. I'm just creating one here. And then I want to run it every, and then can I do some second here? No, I can't. What kind of type is that? Scheduler time stride. UI schedule. Oh, okay. This is in the combine schedulers. This type itself. It's part of dispatch. Let me just say 1 for now, and then just add a warning. Oops. And again, we want to make the 1 second readable. Unit not clear right now. We can fix that later, but for now this is 1 second, and I want to run it on. And then we have access to the environment, which is our timer env.mainQ. This should work now. It says static method requires a type timer action, and it's going to be equivalent. Schedule timer type. Let's go back to their example. Everyone tolerance on environment main queue. They're doing an animation there. And they want to cancel it when stop is pressed. That's why we need the timer ID here. Actually, we need it on the other action as well. So return new effect done. So in long terms, it's effect.cancel. And now we just provide the ID. And we can shorten it by just saying cancel. But I don't understand. The timer requires the type timer action. Okay. And dispatch queue scheduler time type. I don't quite understand. Let's get into this. So, parameters. Oh, I'm providing. Oh no, this is right. And this is the actual. This is the interval. This is the scheduler. Okay, we can also go into publishers to timer. This is an alternative in case this doesn't work for some reason. And this is last documentation. Okay, in the composer we test time-based effects like this by using the test scheduler. That's exactly what I meant. That is why we provide this method here. It allows you to create a timer that works with any scheduler, just not a run loop, which means you can use a dispatch queue or a run loop when you're running your live app. But use a test scheduler in a test. To start and stop a timer in your feature, you can create a timer effect from an action and then use the effect cancel. That's exactly what we're doing. But why isn't it working? Static method time requires type timer action. Is this of type timer action? No. The timer action is the action. This is where we're switching on. Everyone, I don't understand what's going on here. This should actually work. So it thinks that I'm not providing a timer action here at all. That's what I don't understand. Let's try it with their exact code. So they say if it's active, they say, okay, they give the tolerance and they just give a tolerance. Let's just go with tolerance. Maybe that's the fix that we need. Let's build again. Nope. State action and they also do some animation here, which we don't really need. They map it into another action. Oh, I see. I see what this is. Okay. We need to return an action, but it's actually currently this type. So we need to map this into another one, and what they do here is they just call timers action timer ticked. Yeah, that's exactly what we need to. So what we need to do is in the store, we need a new action, which is basically also timer ticked, because we're just going to do a 1 second update. Let's actually call this a good name. Let's make it a new line. We don't need this, and then we just say our timer action dot timer ticked. Makes sense. Now we need to provide timer ticked, and the very simple solution we can do here is time left. We just do -1 second, and in this case we don't have to return something. And now let's just try to build and run this. So it's failing, but not because of this. It's failing because we're missing the main queue parameter here when we create the environment, and the main queue param and we need to pass here is just dispatch queue dot main and then erase to any scheduler. And it's also now missing, and this was in the preview provider, and we need to do the same thing, of course, in the real situation where we call into this in the content view as well. Now the app is building. The app is running. Let's go to the timer view, and then now if I click start, we will see that nothing happens. So something doesn't work yet. Let's see what it is. So it says stop button pressed, but I actually pressed the start button. So there's some button connection issue here. We have the button that says start, but it's setting a stop pressed action. That's obviously wrong. So start is actually what we want. I think we've yeah, mixed them up. Let's run it again. There we go. Now it's not running. I click start. Let's see what happens. Okay, it does run now. The issue is the start button stays the start button though. And if I click it again, it still continues to run. So something is going on. But we still have an issue here, which is I think here, if view store timer is running, we're showing the stop button, which is correct. This should actually be what's happening. Let's go to the reducer. So if the stop button is clicked, the is running is set to true. Of course, that needs to be the other way. We need to set it to false. If stop is clicking, we set it to true. If start is clicked, let's rerun again. Now nothing happens. Click start, changes to the stop button, and the timer is going down. So that's great. That's like a huge progress already, because now our timer is actually working properly. And can we also go stop it? Let's see. Yes, we click stop, and basically what happened is it canceled. It says stop button pressed, and it canceled the effect that was running in the background with the ID timer ID. So that worked. If we click start again, does it work? Yeah, it works. If we click stop, it stops. So that's exactly what we wanted. So far so good, and I believe this is again ready to be made a commit with. So this is the scheduler. This is all the stuff here. This is the store change. These are the fixes. And basically add a ticking timer when start button is pressed. Plus update. I think the updating of the view was already implemented, but it's now working. So let's also commit it here. Commit, and yet again, because we have another initializer, a parameter with parameters, let's add that to the commit. Cool. Another part of progress. Obviously, what we want to do, also what we wanted to happen is, or what bug we have right now, and let me actually show you the issue. I mean, there's still a lot we need to do, but there is an obvious thing, and that's that currently we start with 25 minutes. Let's make this seconds, and let's make it just 5 seconds. So let's start with 5 seconds. I think we need to actually change this here. And this is actually not needed anymore. Let's run the app. So now the timer feature is created with 5 seconds by default. And currently when I click start and it runs and it counts down every second, it will actually reach this time and then it will go to minus. So first we see that there is like an issue with the number formatting, but also it's just wrong because yeah, it's just wrong because basically we don't want it to ever go to minus. Instead, when it's 0, we want it to like send an alarm or something like that. So we need to handle that now as well. Let's go to our store and let's just make a new action. And the action is basically going to be 0 reached or something like that. So alarm, send alarm. 0 reached, time is up. Time is up. So this is an action that happens from, and that basically we receive in the reducer. And when time is up, we're going to do something. What we do, we don't know yet. We can implement this later. I'm just going to put a not yet implemented here, and I like to make this a warning, not yet implemented. And I'm actually, oops, let's fix the typo. Implemented. I'm actually using this so often that I used to basically extract this into a code snippet. So let me do that. Let's create a code snippet for that. And this is just a warning, not yet implemented. And the shortcut I'm going to use is just NYI. So it's added now, and now what I can do is at all times I can just say not yet implemented and then click enter and it will add this here. Great, we have this snippet and we're going to implement this later, but let's first think about when we want to fire time is up. And that's basically whenever the timer is ticked, we want to also make sure it never goes below 0. Instead, when it is at 0, we want the time is up action to be triggered. So we can just adjust the logic here. So we just say minus 1 second, but we just want to do this in case the timer is not already up. So if state time left is actually lower than or equal to 0, then we actually just want to fire the this time is up action. And the way you do this in the Swift composable architecture from a reducer, if you want to run another action from one action, you just create an effect that is just one value, and the value is the action that you want to fire. So this basically makes sure that we don't continue doing this here, and we just run into this section here instead. We can also write this as a guard statement, because I like to have my returns be always in a guard. I don't like to have returns in if, because that feels like go-to logic. So I'm going to turn it into guard that the time left is always above 0, else return this. And if it's not, then we can also put this into one line, else just continue counting down. Let's run this and see what happens now. Let's go to timer feature, let's click start. It should start counting down. 3, 2, 1, 0. And then does it fire the action? That's the big question. And you can see it's firing time is up, but it's firing it again and again. So we forgot to actually cancel the timer, and we're already canceling it here. And we also want the timer is running state to change. So basically what we want to have, like when the time is up, it should be the same as stop button pressed plus some additional logic, which is going to be here. So I'm just going to merge this into here, and there is an effect merger, so I can say effect dot, and then I can concatenate, which means they're going to be run one after the other, or I can just merge and they will be run on this at the same time, and I'll just do that. So let's just run 2 effects at the same time. One is still this time is up, and the other one is just going to be stop button is pressed, which is not entirely correct. Instead, what's happening when we click this is that we want to stop the timer, right? That's what the action. So stop button, stop timer is requested. That's basically the actual thing we want here. Stop timer or just requested. Stop timer requested, and when stop button is pressed, we're just going to return the value stop timer is requested, and instead in stop timer is requested, we're just going to do these 2 things. And this way this stays the same, but we can have a more speaking name. Stop timer is requested. Let's try to run this. Show timer feature, let's start the feature. It's starting to count down. Now when it's at 0, now you can see it actually stopped and time is up was called, and then it's not continuing anymore. That's great to see, but it's kind of boring. Nothing's happening when time is up. So let's do something there. And I think what can we do? Maybe we can just show an alert or something like that. So let's go into our view, and we want to show an alert. Oh, before we go into the view, so we have to tell when to show the alert, so we need some state. So something like show time is up alert. It could be just a boolean. Let's keep it simple. And this should default to false. We don't need to initialize it. And timer is running. Yeah, this never ever we need to set this to true when we just show the state. So we can actually keep it inside of here. And also to our reducer we can go, and reducer's logic is going to be as simple as changing the state to timer show time is up alert to true. And yeah, I think that's it. We need to also set it back to false, so let's actually add another action here, which is time is up alert presented. And when we get that, we set it back. Time is up alert presented. Show. Actually, we don't want it to be automatically set. We want the user to set it by clicking OK or something like that. So let's figure that out later. Let's first show the alert. So how can we show an alert in SwiftUI? We could go to our VStack here. Let me close that quickly. So that's a level, and then we want to show an alert. Easy as that. And we have the option to provide a is presented binding here in one of these options. Let's actually just go for that, and let's also add a title. Is presented actions message. Title is just time is up. The binding, and now we're getting back to composable architecture. How can we bind our state, which is the show time is up alert? We want this to cause the alert to be shown, and also when the alert is dismissed by the user, we want this to be set back to false. And we can actually do that by specifying view store, the binding, And then we have this get and send variant, where we can say when how to get the state. And to get the state basically is to call the show time is up one. And when we basically wanted to change the state, and that's where we need a new action. As you can see, we need to provide an action here. We can just provide an action that just says set and time is up alert present, or let's do it like this, is presented. Bool. So this can be called in both cases when it should be shown and when it should be hidden. And actually now we can go to the reducer and add that logic. Set time. Let's copy it over. Sometimes it takes time for the autocompletion to work. Is presented. Now we can just say state.show time is up alert equals is presented. And we don't actually need this anymore. Instead, we can also just return here the value of the set time. Oops, there's a typo here, I see. Let's fix it quickly. So set time up alert is presented. In the case of time is up, we want it to present, so we just set it to true. And the time it's going to be called with false is when that's something within SwiftUI. When this is presented as set to false, it will actually send the action timer action dot set time alert, and then I can just provide the name of this action, as this is going to be basically a function with a parameter which is going to be the boolean is presented. And this way we connect it to SwiftUI, and SwiftUI will automatically bring it to false. So we're showing this, and then we need to provide some actions here. What can we add here? I think we just add a button. And here, let's make it explicit. So this is just a button, OK button, and when it's clicked, yeah, we can say like we do nothing. We could actually, can we get rid of this? Let's try it out in a sec. Let's first keep this empty. The message is like time is up. See what happens. This actually works. Showing the timer, click start, timer is running. Now the timer is up and we see an alert and it says time is up, OK button. When I click the OK button, it dismisses. And actually, as you can see, it calls set time up as alert is set to false. So everything worked as expected. This is not beautiful by any means. And actually, I think there should be some kind of default buttons here, or is there? There's a cancel button. I mean, it's actually basically a cancel button that we need. Can we do something like this? No. Okay, let's just keep it with OK for now. This is definitely something that needs improvement, but at least the timer is counting down and then we're getting some alert. And we will also change this for sure. But for now, this should be working. And this gets another step closer to making this whole thing work. And we don't want to commit the 5 seconds because we actually do want to keep it at 25 minutes. Let's just add it to there, because for testing it's much more interesting to have 5 seconds. So let's add a warning. I think I have to add it here. Change back, or actually you want to extract it. Extract the time left default value out into constants and change to 25 minutes. Now we can keep it because we have the comments that reminds us to fix it later, and everything else looks fine to me. The alert, we'll just add it as is, and add simple alert when timer is up. Cool. Code is not looking great, and also the app is not looking great, but for like making progress overall, this is not bad. And just checking off the different things we wanted to do, it's also not bad at all. So let's actually make another point in what we've done here, adding this. Cool. And we're nearly at the half of the stream, so I think I will just make a quick break here to like stretch and things like that. I'll be back in a couple of minutes, so please stay tuned. Okay, back from a quick pause. Some stretching and some fresh air, really always a good idea. So I hope you did that too. If you didn't, maybe you want to do it now. Cool, so we have the timer basically implemented, and that was actually the goal here. So we have done it, and we don't really need the reference of the last time anymore. And we didn't run into many problems here. So the question is, how do we continue? What we could do now, and what I would typically do is, first I would make sure to document all this code, because like this is kind of named well, to make sure it's all working properly, but I typically tend to also document everything that I write, especially if it's public, because we're going to use it from elsewhere. Public always is an indicator that it's basically something that you're going to use, or someone else is going to read, or yourself in the future is going to read. So I always try to document these things, and not going into too much detail most of the time, but whenever it's not very, very obvious, I tend to document. In this case, I kind of feel everything is named relatively obvious, so maybe not really needed here. Same here. Maybe we can keep it undocumented, but the second thing I typically do is also testing the thing, so I can make sure that it continues to work in the future. And the question is, do we test it now, or do we try to continue having more in the app, more features in the app, and add the tests later? That's like always the kind of question. And I typically tend to do the tests right away, unless there is like some related feature that makes sense to when I write tests, to test it together. So we have the timer now. We're not really showing it in a great way in the app. Let's also run it on the iOS, so we can see actually how it will look like all in an iOS application. I'm doing macOS and iOS app development at the same time here. So running the app on an iPhone 13. Again, you can see the build always here at the top, that it's building. Build succeeded. Now it's launching the iOS iPhone 13 simulator here. Let's close the other one. So this is like the this is the sample data project structure created by Apple. We're going to delete all this. Instead, this is the logic we have written ourselves, and I can click the start button here. It will start counting down to 1, 0, and on iOS the alert looks something like this: time is up, and I'm saying time is up twice. So also let's write warnings for the time is up text, because they're not localized. I actually want everything to be localized in the end. Maybe that's something that we can do next. Yeah, let's actually do that. Let's do the localization. And a little more nicer text. So we have the alert, which is saying time is up. It's not localized. So how I localize is I use body crouch. And body crouch works like this, that I basically, let's first see if we have multiple languages in the project before I get to, yeah, we have English and German. That's great. So I'm just going to localize the alert here, and this is the alert message. And I just call into body crouch .translate. And I can provide the key here, and the key basically is for referencing the translation and giving it some name that is independent of language. So I'm going to use English for this, and I like to use a dot approach, so something like timer. This is related to the timer view. And then it's part of an alert, which is the time is up alert. Time is up alert, or we could also use dashes. Up alert, which one do I prefer for this project? Let's actually go with the snake casing here. Time is up alert. And this is basically the message that we're showing. No, the message at the bottom, this is the title. And then I can provide translations here right within the code. I will provide a translation for German and one for English. So what is the text that we want to show? In the message, we want to show something like, it's time to take a break. Like we did right now, we want to maybe give the user some hints on what to do, like go have a stretch and get some fresh air, something like that. Or you could have a stretch. You could have a stretch and breathe some fresh air. It's time to take a break. Consider having a stretch and breathing some fresh air. Something like this, I don't know. Let's do the same for German. So, Zeit für eine kleine Pause. Consider having a stretch and breathing some fresh air. Something like this. And the comment, I will not add a comment here. And what I could do, normally when I would now build the project with the Barty Crouch build script, it would just replace this automatically. Instead, what we need to do is we need to either while making a commit, or we can just go to the terminal manually. And let's actually make this full screen so we can see it side by side. Just going to add it on the side here. And now you can see it as well. Let's remove that. And now when I run Barty Crouch update, it should actually replace the code there. And it doesn't. It does. Okay, it did. So the text was replaced. Where is it now? Here you go. This is now an L10N timer, time is up alert, things like that. The thing is that this L10N thing, it's in the strings files here. And for that to work, we need to call also Swiftgen. It will update the strings files. Now we have the time is up alert here, but it's inside the resources module. So we need to import resources here, which is already imported. And then we should actually have access to this. So let's try to build the iOS app. And it says it's not in scope. Because it's not public, I guess. Yeah, it's internal, it's not public. So we need to actually adjust the strings here. Okay, we need to get our own XC assets. Like here, we need to get our own strings as well. So I'm going to create an empty file. I'm calling it Swiftgen strings.stencil. Adding it to the root files. There we go. Let's sort them by name. And now the basic contents I'm going to use here is the contents of the template on Swiftgen itself. So I have to look up what that looks like in Swiftgen. And before I can do that, let's see our Swiftgen settings. So in the Swiftgen settings for strings, I'm actually referencing a structured Swift4 template. That's what we're looking for. Let's go to sources, I think. Swiftgen, not really. Where are the templates? Scripts. Okay, let's just search for structured Swift4 strings/structured Swift4 documentation templates. Okay, documentation templates strings. Now we have structured Swift4. We actually also have Swift5. Is this public? Oh, it doesn't. Oh, this is just documentation. So the real code is elsewhere. I guess it's in source, it has to be. Over here, commander, no. Maybe here, yes, templates, there we go. Strings, Swift 5, does it have any public here? Access modifier, I can actually provide a parameter, so access modifier, and then it will use public access. Ah, I see, so there is some way of modifying this. Let's search for access modifier. It also works on Swift 4. Let's actually use the Swift 5 template. See what happens when I run Swiftgen now. Looks nice. Next, I want to add the access modifier. How it's done, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it's written somewhere in the documentation, which is on Swiftgen. Either it's right here. Let's search for public. Nope. Access. Nope. Let's go to documentation details then. And we have a whole documentation folder. So documentation. I believe we can actually go to templates here because we need to know the documentation of this specific template. This is the configuration example and it provides more parameters, and the parameters are these ones. Where is it? Inputs, outputs. Where are they provided? Bound token, enum name, file name, lookup, public access. There we go. If set, the generate constants will be marked as public, otherwise they will be declared internal. We don't provide lookup function. Okay. We want to provide the public access option. Let's go here. Don't need this anymore. Instead, we want to go here, strings, output. How do we provide parameters? Is it template name? Something like this? I'm not sure. Strings, inputs, outputs, template name, output strings on Swift. Is output a parameter? No. In customers and other about writing following parameters when you work with Switch and see dedicated documentation. So strings, inputs, filter outputs, or to specify parameters. Or is it just on the command line? Let me actually try this out. If I run Swiftgen and then public access. Oh no, that's not it. Params, there we go. It's just called params. So, like outputs on the same level, right? No, on the same level as output. So I'm going to go here, params. And then the question is, what type is it? I'll just go like this. Let's see what happens if I run Swiftgen now. Written. There we go. This solves it, I think. And we're going back to, and that's a learning actually. So let's actually write that down. So you can pass parameters to Swiftgen. So it's possible to pass parameters to Swiftgen templates. See here. Cool, no learning here. And this worked. So the reason we did this was because the build was failing due to internal reference, and now it's no longer failing. It's actually working. And actually, if the timer is up now, it should give us the translated value. And there you go. It's time to take a break. Consider, oh, this is now the title. We don't want this long thing in the message. So we actually messed up. And to fix this, let's go to the localizable strings file, and we can see this is the title. And we want this to be in the message. And same with the auto translation. Message. And now we have to rerun Swiftgen because it will regenerate the things. And now it should fail. Project should fail. because we have renamed this to message. And obviously we want to use the message down here. And yeah, we have to recreate a title, so let's go for Bart Crouch Translate. Let's create another key and same structure, timer. Time is up, alert. This time it's actually a title, and this was message, sorry. This time around it's going to be title. Let's go for English first and then German as well. So what Body Crouch did basically, just to explain this, is it saw the code with the Body Crouch Translate reference that we had in the code, and it automatically added this key into all the different files that we have provided translations for. And that's the magic of it. So we will apply it here again. And with a build script it's much more convenient, but we'll fix it later. English, the title, just time is up. No comment. And then yet again we'll just run Body Crouch, update, it's updating the code, and then this reference should immediately work. But it doesn't, because because we forgot to run Swiftgen. Let's actually do them together. So Body Crouch update and Swiftgen. Cool, now it should work. And Swiftgen basically reads the strings files and generates this strings code file from it with the right structure. And we can actually remove the sample key again here. For that we just go to localizable strings, and we can just remove it from the English one, because Body Crouch will also sync automatically the languages. So it should be removed from the German one as well. There we go. Back to the code. Here we were. Let's run the app again. Let's see if the titles have changed. Oh yeah, time is up. It's okay to take a break. It's time to take a break. Consider having a stretch and breathing some fresh air. Yeah, that's kind of the text we want. And we have the OK button, which is not translated yet. And because OK is something that we're probably going to use over and over again, I'm just going to use a different kind of key for that. And I used to call this a global key. So that's like not specific to a specific context. Instead, it's useful on a global level. And basically, I also say like the kind of global thing. It can be labels or something like that. In this case, it's an action because it's a button thing. So global action. And then what we want to do here is just say OK. You could also say OK or confirm, but I think OK is good enough. And then for English, it's just, it's just OK. For German, I think it could be OK. It could also be this. I'll keep this one here. And let's just rerun Body Crouch and Swiftgen. Now this should work. And the button isn't doing anything here, which is kind of fine. But I believe that there's something specific for alert. Let's Google that quickly. So SwiftUI alert cancel button. Hacking with Swift is really a great source to learn things or look up things also. There's a default kind of over dismiss button. Do we have that in ours? We have alert is presented, and then, you can also pass it an alert. You could also go do it that way. Title message. And everyone. Should we do it that way? Actions. Really make a difference? The API might have actually changed. Let's try again. Alert is presented. It's a binding and boolean. Yeah, this works. Well, let's go for that. And the binding is this part here. And then we just have a trading closure. Let's make this more readable. Okay, now it should work. And in here, we're just creating an alert. title message and dismiss button. There we go. Title message dismiss button. And our message was this. Our title was this. Can we actually go without the text wrapper here? Let's see. And the button is just a default. No. How did he do that? Dismiss. Ah, he did use default with a text. But yeah, this have to be a text as well. So this is a text. This is also a text. We could also use a label here. A label, addition to a text, the label also has an icon. Okay, we have the button here. I'll go for the default button. SwiftUI alert button default with a text of button and global action. Okay. Let's try it this way. Also kind of more readable. Time is up. It's okay to take a break. Okay. And then to test out if this is actually localized, we can just run the app in German. So we can just pass it the option to run in German. There we go. Let's rerun it. It's actually not in German anywhere else, because we haven't localized anywhere else, but the error alert should actually be localized. And it's not. Okay, what did we do wrong? Oops. Edit scheme. This is the iOS scheme app language. Should actually work this way. Let's try out by changing the device's entire language to German. Maybe it's just an issue with that. If that's not the issue, then this should also not work. And then we'll see immediately that it's actually another issue that we have there. Start. Okay, we have another issue. So somehow the translations don't work as expected. Let's go back to this being English. Okay, so it's not translated for some reason. Do we again have a referencing problem? It's calling LTNR. This function, which is again using the bundle token thing. I think there was an option for bundle token as well, if I remember correctly. Here we go. So we have the public access lookup function. Bundle, here we go. Bundle token.bundle. Note, ignored if lookup function parameter is set. Lookup function is... Let me actually set the bundle explicitly. I don't think it changes anything because this thing should work actually. But this is actually good code if it's Swift package. Maybe it's not Swift package, but we still need it. Let's try it. So we're specifying the bundle as bundle .module. Let's run this again. And let's see what the strings file looks like now. And it's bundle.module. Let's run the app again. Oh, we have to run it in German to see if it's working. Maybe we should just localize something, but the back button even isn't German. I believe this is another issue. This is a different issue. It's not about the referencing. I believe this is also not really needed. Although we could actually do it. We should keep it. Makes the code simpler. But it must be something else. So maybe the app itself doesn't have localized files. Maybe then iOS doesn't think that it's actually localized or something like that. We have support. I have to add support here somehow. Okay, I'll try it out with macOS. Let's just add a file here. Any file that we can localize. And we could actually add a strings file and just keep it empty. This is like this is just a test basically. Adding it to both. Do we need to link them to the target? I don't quite remember. Let's just keep it linked. And then I just go here and say localize this thing. Use English as the default, add German. Now let's run again the entire project. Maybe I will now figure out, okay, this is actually something. Yes, we have the edit button in German up there now and the back button. Okay, then that's a weird thing that happened there, but we did find a workaround for it. And now this should actually also, yeah, there you go, showing you German text, which is great. So we do need to keep something like this, but let's rename it. This is not test, this is workaround. This is like a language support. Let's call it language support workaround. So add comment. This file is only added to the project because without it, iOS seemed to not understand that the app actually supports multiple languages, probably due to no files in the project target being localized at all, but only files within packages. Let's also add this to the other languages. Cool. Kind of a long name, maybe the workaround, we don't need that. We have the comment now. Just call it language support. Weird workaround, but at least it works. And let's also indent this. I believe this is the default indentation. Ah, that's not indent. Anyways, we have localized some part of the app now. Let's localize it all. Let's do it everywhere. And this part here, yeah, let's keep it on. Cool, what else do we have? Let's go to all the texts. Anything that is a text we need to localize. So this is the code generated by Apple. And we might actually want to remove this all because we don't really need it. We just need a navigation link there. Maybe we can keep the VStack. Let's just remove everything that we don't need. Actually, we also don't need the VStack. Well, let's keep it now. It doesn't hurt. Preview navigation place at the proper place later. Absolutely. Actually, we could just show the timer for now. Or we just keep links to the different screens. Yeah, let's keep links because we might add settings later during testing. So do we need the managed object context? Not really. The fetch request not need anymore. This is not needed anymore. Add item with animation. This is creating a new item and saving. All this code not needed. Delete items not needed. Item formatter not needed. And the preview we can keep it. So let's remove the unnecessary code. And let's just show a navigation link to a timer view. Where else do we have text? Time left. This is actually text that we've added, and let's localize this. So this is, again, called body crouch translate. In this case, we're still in the timer module, but this is the time left call it box, time left, it's just time left. And for the time left, it's just a label. And what we had here is something like time left. Something like that. No comment here as well. And let's just make it do, let's body crouch and Swiftgen do their job. There we go, we have localized this. Then we have this string formatted. And this actually had an issue with negative numbers. We saw that, but we should never have negative numbers anymore. So I think we can just keep the code for now. This is localized, localized, localized. Cool, I think the app should be pretty much localized now. Nice. Obviously our text here in the content view, I think, in the app entry point, the text that we have here is not localized, but this is not a proper text anyways, so I think it's fine to not have that localized. And this button is now localized. We can remove that warning. We can also remove that warning. Do we have any more localization warnings? Doesn't look like it. Then make 1 second more readable. Unit not clear. We still have to fix that. Extract the time left default value. That's also to be done. Preview navigation place. Capabilities for signing. Uses a placeholder team. Yeah, that's fine. That's all fine. And I think we can again commit something with the only thing now we need to revert the setting of a specific language, otherwise we would commit that as well. Set it back to system language and let's see what we can commit here. So this is the workaround file that we've added. Same here. Then we have language support. Actually, it's also learning. So learning was basically that if you don't if you have multiple languages added to your project, but no localized files, localization won't work in the app target. Localization won't work even if you have localized package resources. Fix added a how do we call it, language support strings file, added an empty strings file. Cool. Little learning there. Let's see if everything looks fine. This looks good. We just added that part. Then we removed a lot of code that was auto-generated by Xcode when we created the project, so we can remove that. Now we have our 4 keys that are actually translated. Let's keep them here. And you can also see that Body Crouch also sorts them by the key. And because I'm using these contexts and parts, the things that belong together, they also stay together here, which is a very nice side effect of this alphabetical sorting. And same here. Then we made this public, so we made some small adjustments to the, or we added basically a specific parameter to Swiftgen, so the code became a lot easier here. And we made it public. Also, we translated everything up. The alert is here, looking good. We switched to version 5, all looking good here. So basically what we did is localize all texts in the app. We do anything else? And fix and improve Swiftgen configuration. I don't think we did we add the alert here, or did we just change it? No, it was added before. plus alert refactor. We did refactor the alert a little bit. Cool. That's another commit there, and also the code is looking good. I think that refactor is not really worth mentioning, but this part is part of the summary. Nice, let's push this. We're making progress step by step. Now our app still doesn't do much, but we have localized the application now. And before we continue with more features, let's actually make sure that this feature continues to work forever. And we can reach this thing, or we can do this by basically making the timer feature test it. And testing is one of the key advantages of the composable architecture. So it should be easy enough once we have set it up. So let's get started. First step, I'll just add a new, not the library, I'll just add a new target, which is for the timer feature. I like to keep it right below the feature itself. And the name is timer feature tests. And dependencies, obviously, are going to depend on the composable architecture. And also on the timer feature. Timer feature. Comma. Cool. Now we have to create a folder in the test, of course. Let's create a test file here. And we're going to basically test the whole, what to call the whole feature. So we could call it actually timer feature tests. Well, let's see how they're calling it in the composable architecture itself. Still have this project here. Let's see if they have any tests here. Let's go to one of their actual projects. So let's go to the to-dos project. They have the to-dos, they have the app, they have, okay, they just call it by the name of the whole feature. In their case, the whole app. Do they also have some feature split products? Tic-tac-toe, app, root fee. Okay, they're very simple apps. But yeah, we're going to just use timer feature, or just timer tests. Timer tests, or timer feature tests. Cool. So first thing we need to do is import Xctest and import composable architecture. Then I like to make that final. We need a test class. We're just going to call it timer feature tests. And Xctest case is what we need to subclass. Then any function we write as starts with test is going to be tested, and we would just want to test probably the normal use case test. Test reducer. Let's just call it test reducer. We're just basically testing the reducer. And let's just go back to their project to see how they write tests. So to do tests, basically you can see they are using a test scheduler, and actually that's going to be something that we need here as well. So let's call it a test scheduler. Q.test, and then they just create a store, and then they send to the store the action. Okay, this is just creating one thing here. Store.send, but how they're testing here? Where's the assertions? Okay, here's the receive and things like that. Okay, so basically what we need to do in order to test this whole thing, and it's not just testing the reducer, it's just testing, we're trying to test like the normal use case is going to be you're gonna want to start a timer, and then it counts down to, and we pause it in between. So let's just test a typical timer lifetime. And it starts with a state where the timer state, or just call it state because we're in the timer test anyways. The state at the beginning is timer is running false. Time left, let's just go by 25 minutes. It's going to be a typical state. And then what we want to do is basically in these tests, and that's the cool thing about composable architecture, we can basically write like use case tests or UI kind of tests without actually using the UI, by just calling or sending actions to our reducer. And as you can see in their code, what they're doing here is they just set up a store and then they send into the store the different actions. And that's what we're going to do as well. So our store is the store. Initial state is state. Our reducer is the timer reducer, and the environment. And that's the cool thing. Now we can also provide a specific environment that's adjusted to testing. And I'm going to create that here. Let env timer environment. And in this case, we're just going to use the test scheduler because we can control it. As you can see, or you should see, when they set up the store, they also set up the test scheduler, which needs to be erased, of course. Erase to any scheduler. There we go. And this is our environment. Now with this store set up, we can basically send to the store. Why is it on state? They're doing it directly on the store. Oh, they're setting up test store. Sure. There's a specific type for testing. So this is a test store. Now we can send to the store an action. So how does this UI get started? Basically, actually normally the first thing happening on the UI is that it appears, but we don't have any did appear kind of logic. So the first thing actually happening is the user clicks start button pressed. And the way this works is whenever an action is sent, you can see you have a trailing closure here, and you just provide here the changes to the state that you expect. And this $0, I think that's the state. And basically it compares then the actual state that the reducer, the actual state changes that the reducer makes to the things you specified here. Let me show you what that means. So I will not define anything here. Then I will just run a test. Let's see what happens. I have to select feature, timer feature test here. Let's run a test. Okay, something's failing here. Yeah, this is the state. Let's just put it like that. So I'm running the test and now it fails. And basically it says an effect returned for this action is still running. So this start action actually started an effect and this effect is still running. So it also gives you some hints how to fix that. If an effect uses a scheduler, make sure that you wait enough time for the scheduler to perform the effect. If you are using a test scheduler, advanced scheduler, blah, blah, blah. If you are returning a long-living effect, like a timer, then make sure those effects are toned down by marking the effect cancelable. So the effect is not marked cancelable. Let's make that. Here's our reducer, which is running the timer here. Let's mark it as cancelable. And the ID is timer ID. I thought it's automatically cancelable because of the ID specified here, but it seems not to be. Let's run this again. Now it's still failing, but only one failing now. And this time it's not failing because I have an effect that's still running. And you can see also that that is a really great thing, because if you have an unexpected side effect, the test will catch them. That's one of the real things. But the other thing that we see here is actually when I run this start button pressed, the state changes. The state changes to timer is running set to true. And this is actually what we wanted to be like. And that's exactly what you provide here as the things that you expect to happen. So you can say like state is timer is running is set to true. This is your expectations basically that we write in here. So we could also call this expected state. I think that's more correct. Expected state timer is running. is inaccessible due to internal. Okay, in this case, we can see that we need access to internal things, but we don't need to make it public for that. We can also just say add testable import. There's a specific kind of import specifically for testing, and this makes all internal things accessible in your test. So now we should be able to run this, and this actually works. So let's continue our typical timer lifetime test. So what else happens here? So users can anytime send a stop action, but not the timer requested. They are clicking the stop button. That's the thing that we expect the user to do. And then we can go expected state in to be, what do we expect? So first the timer is running should be false. Then actually we expect when the stop button is pressed, not this to change directly. Instead we just saw that when we had this store that's send, we had this stop timer requested, right? This is another action that we had added. So we actually expect that the stop button press to cause this other action to be sent. And this can be specified here by just stating that we expect after this happening, the store to receive. Wasn't it called receive? Let me look it up. Yeah, it's called receive. We expect the store to receive the stop timer requested action. There we go. This was the wrong thing. And this also takes a closure. And again, you can say basically like with the send, what's going to change here. And I'm going to drop this expected state thing because it's kind of repetitive. And instead we're going to use the $0 as well. Or actually, I think it's more readable to people, and this is open source, more readable to people if we actually keep it explicit. Expected state, even if it's repetitive, I think it's going to be much easier to understand than for someone who doesn't know how these kind of tests work. So this actually, I don't expect this to do anything. So can I drop this actually? I don't think so, but let's try. And I expect the expected state to have timer is running set back to false. And maybe some other changes, but let's see what happens if we run this. Store, receive, timer actually needs to confirm. Yeah. To equatable, we should do that anyways. There we go. There we go. Everything is happening as expected. What else can happen? The user can restart. Let's send another start button pressed. And yet again, expected state, timer is running, is back to true. And then what we can do now is we can actually control time, as I said. It's not going to run real time, but instead we have the test scheduler, and we can just say advance the time in the test scheduler. Oops. Advance by, and then we can just provide some time like seconds or something. So let's advance the time by 1 second. What do we expect? After 1 second, we expect store to receive a timer ticked action, right? And the timer ticked action, does it make any state changes? I think it just calls into the next action, which is the time. No, I think it's not calling into anything. It's just, okay, it is affecting a state. I think it is going to expected state. It's going to change the time left. So if the time left at this time was 25 minutes, now it should be 24 minutes plus 59 seconds, right? Let's see if that's actually the case. Okay, something is not as expected. expected to receive an action, but it received none. So the timer tick did not get called. Why is that? We click the start button pressed. Actually, I expect the timer to also run. And okay, we're not testing if the timer is properly getting cancelled here. How can we check for that? Let's see the project again. They're doing these things here. Do we have a test for the timer? SwiftUI case studies. Timers. Are there tests anywhere? Not really. And they are doing this view store. So they're not testing for the behavior of the effect that is the timer, that is like long term. I want to test that too. I want to know that during my tests, in specific cases, the timer is still an effect that is there. So let's see if there's anything with effect. Effect cancellables. Store.receive scope state send assert. Maybe we can assert something here. Let's read the documentation here. I think it's going to be helpful. So we wanna test documentation, store, test store. Does not state anything about the effects in the store. I'm not sure if that's even possible. That's something I'm going to keep for things to figure out. So let's just go to our project to-dos and let's say test for the timer effect in the timer feature. Currently only actions and state. So that way we can skip this for now. But to fix this, expected to receive an action but receive none. Timer ticket. So maybe it's this should actually still happen. Expected state, timer left. Did we click the start button? Yeah. Click the start button, so it should be running. Let's go to the reducer, timer reducer. We are in the timer reducer and we are starting the effect when the start button is pressed. It's timer effect, it's cancelable, but it only gets cancelled on if the stop button is clicked, and it gets restarted when the start action is received again. So there should actually be, maybe we can actually do something like cancellables, effect cancellables. Assert is deprecated, use test store.send and test store receive directly instead. Maybe we can just do a normal XCT asserts. Assert equal store.cancellables, effect cancellables to be timer ID. There should be one there, right? This is an array. Cannot find timer ID in scope. Oh, this is only local to that, but never mind. Let's compare it to an empty array. Let's see what we get actually here. Dictionary literal, okay. Store is inaccessible. Yeah, I was not expecting this to work. Okay, we'll figure it out next time. Let's add the warning here too. Assert that a timer effect is running in the background. And then here, assert that the timer effect is cancelled. But I still expect after 1 second the timer to actually run. Let's do 2 seconds. Maybe it's a small issue thing. Circle any I don't know what that is. Okay, it's building, but test is still failing. Try to receive an action but received none. Do we call timer ticked when? Yeah, timer ticked. Okay, we have to fix this somehow. I don't know why it's not working. Let's figure it out. Let's first make sure we add these things here. Actually, maybe we shouldn't add that cancelable thing. Let me try that out before we start researching. Let me comment this out again and just run the tests. It was failing, but I actually didn't expect it to fail here. It's saying an effect return for this action is still running. It must complete before the end of the test. To fix, inspect any effects the user returns for this action and ensure that all of them complete by the end of the test. There are a few reasons why an effect may not have completed, and we are in this case, if you are returning a long-living effect, like a timer, then make sure those effects are torn down by marking the effect cancelable and returning a corresponding cancellation effect, like the effect.cancel from another action, or if your effect is driven by a combined subject, send it a completion. But we don't want to cancel it yet, we want to cancel it by the end. It's already failing here though. Okay, maybe we need this. I'm really not sure. In any case, let's write the test to the end and then fix these issues. So I'm expecting this to happen. Oh, there is an unhandled action now. One unexpected action after this one. It ticked twice. So if we do that, then it actually works. Okay. So actually we don't need this. This was all correct. And the issue here, I think it's just telling me that an effect has started here, and by the end of the test, I've still not canceled it. And obviously we're going to cancel it once the whole life cycle is done. So what I'm doing here is I'm changing by 1 second. I expect it to change here. And just for fixing this error here, I'm just going to already say store.send, and I'm just going to send to stop button pressed action, which should do the same things as here. Let's just copy it. And now it should actually pass so far until here. There we go. But we don't want to stop it. Instead, we want it to continue with the test scheduler. I will advance it now by, by minutes. Okay, we don't have minutes here. Let's go to seconds. This is not the time interval handy Swift extension, by the way. This is something in the library itself, so there's no minutes and things like that. We might want to add it, but I'll just use it as is. And I'm just going to tell go by 24 minutes. And just to see how we can do this here, I expect to receive the timer ticked. I don't know how to say that I expected to receive it 24 times. Let's see. Expect update. Yeah, not sure. But the timer left apps should be on 0 and 59 seconds. Let's just go for 59 seconds. Let's run the test. Effect return. Yeah, this is clear. But yeah, it says the store received 1,439 unexpected calls into timer ticked. Can I specify an array here? Let's see. Convert of any to expected argument timer action. Reference to member. Okay, this might actually work. So let's create an array. I think we have something called times. How was it in I think we have something in Handy Swift for that as well. Times make. There we go. It makes an array by adding closure return values and time. This is 5 times make. Okay, this is exactly what we need. And we want to say 24 times 60 times make. 24 times 60 times make, and then we're just going to make the timer action timer ticked. This is what we expect to receive. Let's run this. See if this works. No, doesn't build. State change does not match. I think this is the old one. Let's go here. Cannot convert value of time array of timer action to expected argument time, just one timer action. How can we receive that? Okay, I'll just write an array. Not an array, a for loop. So we will advance so much, and I will expect for we'll just go from 0. Okay, how can we run something 24 times 60 times? Times run, I expect. Okay, we need to know the number here. This is getting kind of messy. Okay, 4 time passed or seconds passed in, and then we're going from 0 to 24 times 60 seconds, and each time we're going to expect to receive a timer action timer ticked, and each time this is called, we expect the time left to be down by 1 second. What happens when I run this? So it's failing, and this part is passing, I would say. We don't really need this, so I'm actually just going to say so many times do this. Okay, then we have 59 seconds left. Let's actually add 59 in here. The next time I call store the next time I do a test scheduler advance by a second, let's just do 58 here. No, 50. Yeah, 50. Let's do 59. Next time I call into this, I expect that the store receives the action timer ticked, and this action this time doesn't change the time left. Instead, it receives the action stop timer requested, because we want to stop the timer, and also the action time is up, and this time is up action is going to change the state. is going to timer is only show time alert is 2, but not directly. Instead we have this other action. This is kind of complicated. Store receive set timer is true, which causes time is up to set to true. I think this is the whole thing. And if timer is stopped, obviously we're also changing the expected state to timer is running false. And also the timer the effect will be cancelled. But I don't think we need to mention that here. We'll just fix this error here. Let's run. I'm sure there's something I forgot, but I didn't. So this just to make sure that it's like I didn't magically get this done. So if I forget this, for example, it should fail. Let's see if that happens. Yeah, it happens, and it states that the timer is running, should change to false, like I wrote here. And this is basically the whole test. I would say this is the full life cycle, a typical life cycle of a timer. Maybe we need to also reset the timer after that. Yeah, let's do that as well. So this time, so far we have written the test. Let's first make a commit. So we made this equatable. We wrote the whole test here, and we added the package. So add basic use case test for the timer feature using TCA. So we corrected this a little bit. Let's add it, amend it to the commit. So great, we have tested our timer feature separately. And basically we also want to, basically what I want to do now is, this is not needed. Actually, I think it's already doing that check automatically. What I want to say is, let's see, yeah, this is all called after each other. I wanted to make sure that we add now a new feature, which is basically we can reset the timer so we can start a new timer. And we could say that after we receive the alert, let's go here, so show timer feature, if I start this and it counts down and we're at 0. Once I see the alert, we might want that when I click OK, that I'm no longer in 0, but I'm again in 25 minutes or 5 seconds in this case. So I want to maybe reset, and I can write this with an approach where I write the tests first. And this is actually, this has a name, it's called test-driven development. And I'm actually going to do this here because I had this idea while writing the test that I have to actually change the requirements. So what I would expect after the time alert is set, that I first send another action, which is set time alert is presented to false, which is when I click the OK button. This is basically how I'm causing that, and that will change the state by setting show time alert is false. And at the moment I do this, I would actually expect that the timer is already reset. So I expect this to cause that the store receives another action, which is like a reset call. But we don't have that yet. So let's actually add it to the action. Timer store. So case and timer reset requested. Let's go to the reducer. Timer reset requested. Basically, timer reset should reset it to whatever it was at the beginning. And in our case, state, the default is here. So we don't really have a good way to reset the state. Should the state know how to reset itself? Or should we just set it manually? I mean, we're going to reference, okay, maybe we might actually need it kind of like the defaults here for a state in the state logic itself. So we can create a new one. Oh, we can create a new one. This has a default in it already. So let's do that. So let's do that. I might have to change this later when we have settings for users to set other defaults than the ones that I have set here. But I'm going to just create a new timer state. And this will have the defaults. So this is the new timer state. And I want to change the state's values to the values of that timer state. And that's basically the timer is running and the time left. That's like the one thing that I care most about. Actually, I don't really need this. Let's extract this already. Let's extract this. I'll just make it a static thing here in this file. This is also not a great solution. We still have the to-do here, but we will be able to use it then. So default static let default time left. So time interval and then we're just going to use the self.default time left. Should work. Why doesn't it? We have to import foundation here, so we can use time interval. Time interval, not timer. Cool. Then we can go back to the reducer. Now we can say that when the timer reset requested first, like everything else is already done, like stop button, things like that. But what else do we want? Actually, I think stop timer requested. Okay, that's different. Timer reset requested. We have the timer ticked when time is up. Set time is up alert presented true. Timer ticked. If the timer is not above 0, we're sending a stop timer requested and time is up. Actually, this is not entirely right, I think. The timer ticked should not cause the timer stop timer request. Instead, it should basically say time is up, but it should stop the timer right away. Timer reset is something different. Okay, timer reset. Basically, we want to set the time left to the timer state.default time left. I think everything else is already correct, and then that's basically all. This should set it back. And then we receive the timer reset requested, which will cause the expected. Oops. Let's copy it again. The expected state. Time left to be set to timer state.default time left. In our case, we set it to 25 minutes. But when you reset, it's just going to set to the default time left. Should it remember the length of the previous one? Maybe we could implement it easily. So if you initialize this with something, we could store it as the last previously used. Something like public static var default time left or previous time left, last used time left. This is not proper, but it will work as long as the app is open. Last used time left, last used time left. It will default to 5 seconds, but whenever another value is set, we actually set it to last used time left to the time left provided. This way, this should actually be 25 minutes. And we have to go here and adjust this to last used time left. Yeah. Let's document that one. That's not kind of obvious. So the time left the user provided on using the timer the last time defaults. Let's not document what it defaults to. Maybe we can state something like defaults to some sensible value. Cool. Now let's go back to the test. So when the time alert the alert is confirmed, it disappears, which is this. Then I expect it to cause the timer reset requested, which should reset the timer left to the value that we have provided last here, which is 25 minutes. Also make this clear. Time left, custom time left is time interval minutes 25. Now let's specify custom time left here so we can reference it here. Custom time left. And with that, I think now we have a full test. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. Expected to receive an action but received none. So set time of, okay, we forgot to cause the timer reset requested to be called actually, and it should be called if this is if set time is up alert is called with is presented set to false. So if is presented, or if not is presented, then we want to return an effect which calls into the timer reset requested action. Now let's run the test again. Now everything succeeds, so all the tests are running fine, and now actually the app should work as expected. And just to be to present or to show that it's actually working, let's run the app. We have a test now that covers exactly what we're going to test now. Show timer, start the timer, should count down. Now we're at 0, it's showing me this, and at the moment I click OK, it should reset this back to 5 seconds. And it's working. Let's do the same with the macOS application, where we maybe can see the value still while the alert is up. Okay, start, counting down. At 0, showing me time is up, it's time to take a break. And we can see that it's showing the app icon here as well, by default in alerts, which is fine. And I click OK, and it's back to 5 seconds. So it's working, the feature is complete, including the reset. And it's even remembering the amount of time that I have set up before when I called into it. Cool. Some warnings were removed. Looks good to me. So add automatic reset of timer to last length on timer up alert confirm. Alert dismissed. Dismiss. And so format kicking in, changing some indentation, that's amended to the commit. And let's push the commit. Cool. Nice, what's next? Let's see what we have in our list. Our timer is getting more and more features. We have tested it even. And let's close this project here. Let's go back here. So we want to create an app icon. That's something we could do now. Check how to run Swiftgen and Body Crouch as SwiftPM plugins. That's for long term. Test for a timer effect in timer feature. I think this is something that we just checked. And let's go back here. Cool. So this is the description of our timer. Back to it. And we want to have a Pomodoro timer with X minute left kind of alarms. And this is kind of working. We want to have an auto-completing task name. So there's a task name missing still. Custom length can also not be provided at the moment. We don't have any categories. We don't have any reflection. We don't have any history. No aesthetics. Nothing of that. And maybe that's the next thing we want to do. We want to maybe set up the model layer. Yeah, that's actually maybe something that we can actually do next. Okay, so we have some UI now. And UI is one part of that development. Another very important part of development, let's close the timer feature, is actually the model layer. And we have a model package here already, where we're going to have the models. Currently, it just has this core data model in here, which has like a sample type, which is called item. But we want to have actual types, and we want to store them in core data so we don't lose them, because we want to have this history feature. And yeah, we can just start by adding them. I mean, we have the list of features that we want to support. Maybe we can just add them one by one and see how our model builds up over time. So we definitely have some kind of timer. The timer is always live. The question is, do we want to store the timer? Do we want to persist it so when you close the app and reopen it again, for example, that it's still there and it continues to do its thing? Maybe we want to do that, but actually let's make another 1 minute break, because I have to stretch a little bit just to yeah, get my back straight. So yeah, 1 minute break or 2 minutes. See you in a couple of minutes. Be right back. Okay, I'm back, and let's continue with the model layer. So we can see again, we have the Pomodoro timer and all these features, and we have to create some models for them. And I'm going to skip the models that we don't necessarily need, because we want to make it work first, and then we can still make it better. So I'm going to basically skip the storing of the timer, because I'm going to expect the user to just have the app open while the timer is running, and adding like support for storing the timer while it's running and things like that. We can still do that later. So it's not going to be a huge deal, I think, if the timer gets lost during it running, at least for the first version here. So let's see the things that we actually have to store, because we need them for the history feature. And for the history feature, we basically want to track the different sessions that we have worked, right? So let's create that item first. Let's remove this first. We don't need that. Discard change. I want to delete it. How can I delete? There's no minus button here. There we go. So I want to add a new entity. I'm just going to call it, I think session makes sense. Or should we call it work session? I think session is the right term here. So we're having a timer session, For a session, we want to actually have a reflection. And I can imagine the reflection consists of multiple parts. It could be its own model. But let's see first what we need on the session. So for the session, to be able to show some statistics and things like that, we want to know the, I would say, the start time. So when was the session started? Or let's just call it started at. And this is obviously a date. It was started at a specific date. Then the session's timer is basically going to be ending at a specific date. So I would say timer ended at, timer started at, maybe that's the timer. Is it a timer? Actually, I think it is a timer. It's nothing else but a timer. Timer started at, timer ended at. And we can make this a date as well. This is, let's open also this part here, because we can specify which of these are optional and which not. I would say when we create a timer, it automatically has the start date, which is off the time where the timer is started. So this is not optional. Then we have the end date, and obviously as long as the timer is running, and that way we get automatically support for storing also a running timer, it is optional. I don't think we need to specify any default values and things like that. Let's just keep them as is. Cool. Next up, So we're starting a timer. We might also pause the timer by clicking the stop button to stop the timer from continuing. I think this is basically, do we need that time even? That's like the question, do we really need that time? If we know the length of the timer, we don't really need that time, right? So we could just specify the timer has a length, time, duration. I think the timer has a duration. Duration, we don't have a duration type here in core data, so we might need to specify the exact unit. Duration in, we could go for seconds, which probably is, yeah, I think it's accurate enough. So let's just go duration in seconds. Let's give the full name here. Duration in seconds. And this is going to be an integer. That's a good question. 32, 64, what's the difference? Let's look it up. Core data, integer 64. And 32. There we go. So integer 16 goes, well, that's not enough. 2 million. No, 2 billion. Yeah, this should be enough. Very, very large. So if we go to seconds, what is 2 million? 2 billion. What is 2 billion? Yeah, should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So what is 2 billion in minutes, and then in hours, and in days? So it would be 23,000 days. I don't think any timer will run that long, so integer 32 should be absolutely enough. Cool, duration in seconds, ended at, started at. So when somebody makes a break, it will just not be clear when they made the break during the timer, and that's not something we really care about in our timer, because this is only about focus and we just want to have statistics about how long the pauses were, maybe how many pauses there were. Maybe that could be interesting. Is that really important? How many of them there were? Let's just write that. Maybe we can use that data. So pauses count. Pauses count. Pause count. Just pause count. Pause count, and this is going to be a small number, so let's go for integer 16. We'll not get anyone who's got more than 30,000 pauses. Next, what else do we have? A timer starts, a timer stops, a timer is paused, a timer has a duration, and the duration might get actually changed during the timer. So we might have a feature where you can add or extend your timer when the timer is up, but that's something where we can just add the time into the duration here. So I think this is more or less the timer. Also, let's check the values here. So this is not optional, and it has a default value, which is 0. Duration in seconds is also not optional, and I like to specify that it's not optional, but I can't. Somehow it's not working properly. There we go. This is also not optional. In this case, I don't really want to have a default value. I can solve this in code. I don't have to solve it in core data. Does it make sense to have any other default in core data, just in case someone creates this in core data and it's forgotten? Yeah, I will just keep it at 0. And likewise, pause count. In this case, it makes sense to keep it at 0, and those don't have. Okay. Cool. This is the timer. What else do we have? So now we can show different times, and we can probably build a history based on the different dates that we have on times. We want to have statistics, history filtered by category. So we need something like a category, and we want to filter by category. each gets its own editable color. Oh, I just have to close the window, just a second. It's getting pretty cold here. So, we want to have some categories that you can basically specify. And we want to also have that the categories can have their own colors, their icon. So we definitely need a category kind of entity. Let's add that. Category. And for the category, we want to have a title. So we want the user to give this category a title or a name. Let's call it name. And the name obviously is a string. And it's not optional. And we don't have a default string for that. We will make sure that the user provides one. Then the category will be set that we want to have a color and an icon. So if we want to specify, make sure that the user can choose a color for the category. Oh, Big Batson, welcome to the stream. Just saw that the last new Pokemon from Legends Arceus got leaked. Did you see them as well? I actually saw on YouTube some videos where I saw that everything basically got leaked, and I resisted watching them for quite a time. And then in the end, basically, I couldn't resist anymore to watch at least the video from, how's it called? Austin John Plays. That's like a YouTuber. And he typically doesn't spoil too much, and he never spoils without telling you that he's going to spoil. And he had this video up where he basically showed every new Pokemon. And I'm not going to spoil how many there are and things like that, but he just showed an image of every new Pokemon. So if you say last new Pokemon, what do you mean by that? I definitely saw, let's say, a couple of dozen new Pokemon at least. And I saw them. So, and there was one specific Pokemon that was kind of special. It was like the biggest spoiler. Everything else was just like, okay, new designs and things like that. But yeah, one Pokemon also I think was kind of a story spoiler. If you mean that, then yeah, I've seen that. What do you think about them? Did you see the leaks? I think it's leaked by now. Yeah, exactly. The final evos from the starters, Palkia, the Ultra forms, etc. Yeah, I've seen all of them already. I didn't like. I think just seeing one image doesn't give you the full feeling of what this Pokemon is like, because you don't see how the animations are, you don't know the story and things like that. But yeah, I think I'm interested in this game, so I'm really looking forward to this game. I'm going to definitely play it. Definitely looking forward. 28th. How many days is left? 9 days left. So in 9 days we can play. Pokemon Legends Arceus. Okay, attributes. What we were doing, we were trying to add a color. So adding a color to a category can be done in multiple ways. We could just store some kind of representation of the color here directly. For example, the hex code or something like that. Alternatively, we could also just say we're going to provide a set of colors, and then we're going to make the user choose one of those colors. And this can have the advantage of making sure that we can make sure that the color, that at least we have some specific contrast between the backgrounds and foregrounds. But to be honest, I think this can also be solved on the UI level by just not giving the user the option of choosing any wrong colors, or we just add like a border or something like that. So on the data level, I will just store the hex code of a color. So the category color hex. I think that's kind of clear. And let's see if there is a specific name for that. Color hex code. Color hex codes. I think that should be good enough. Color hex code. So this is also not optional. We can set something automatically on the UI. Next thing we want to add is an icon. And this is also a tough one. So what icons do we allow here? We could like provide some custom icons. We could make the user upload icons. We could use system icons. I think I'm going to go for SF symbols. So if we go to SF symbols here, you can see we have like a lot of icons here. And I'm pretty sure that users will find useful icons from SF symbols. And SF symbols can be referenced by their name. So for example, this one, if I just copy its name, it's arrow.uturn.backward.circle.fill. And if we have this name, then we can actually reference it and use it in the UI and things like that. So this could be stored as a string. So I could just say something like icon symbol name. Is it called name? Is there a term for that? Edit copy symbol, copy name. Yeah, it's the name of the symbol. So icon symbol name of type string. And this also not optional. We could just choose one automatically. We could choose a random one. We might also on the UI level restrict it to some of those SF symbols to not show all of them. But I think this is on the data level, it makes sense to have the names stored here in the color hex code in this case. Cool. What else do we have on the category? Get its own editable color, icon, and then two-dimensional project versus task type. So I want to be able basically to specify on a timer that it belongs to a like one project type of category and one task type. Okay, I think let me rethink the use case. So the use case I had was that I had 25-minute long sessions or timers. I think timer is not the right word here. Ended at, started at, duration in seconds, pause count. If we call the session ended at, started at, duration in seconds of the session, and the pause count of the session. I think both make sense. Timer or a session. Never mind, let's keep timer because this is a name, open focus timer. Timer category. Okay, so let's get back to the use case. So I have the situation where I have a project, for example, the open focus timer. This is the project. And I want to work on this project for a long term. So I could create some kind of, we could create some kind of task or something like that I'm working on. But I actually just want to track this as a category here. So I have a category which I call open focus timer. And then I want to have another kind of category where I can say like, this is design time. This is programming. This is like, I want to give the kind of work time that I'm having a different meaning. And it can be all on the same project. So on the same project, I'm working on different kinds of categories. So I want to have basically groups of categories, something like that, groups of categories, and you have to specify each group. And the user might actually want to select for themselves how many groups they want to have. And how are we going to build this in the model layer? So if we have something like category and we give it these names, how can we create a group of categories to choose from? So basically it's not really a category, but it's like, for thinking in like coding terms, it's like an enum where I have to choose from the project enum, then I will have to choose from the kind of work enum, and then users might also want to have other kinds of enums. And should they all be required? That's like another question. Okay, how can we model this? So we have category. So users could just create categories for different. Okay, we could just add a field here that gives the category, makes it, yeah, it's something like group. Okay, let's create another thing here. I would just call it a category group. And then I could say something like a category belongs to a category group. So it has a relationship to a group. The destination is a category group. Inverse, this will have categories in it. So relationship to category, inverse is group, and the inverse is categories. Then in this case, the group, does it have to be optional? If somebody doesn't want to create groups, we could create a default group. Let's make it non-optional, so every category has a group. And in case a this is a 2-1 relationship, yes. And in the case of a category group, this is a to-many relationship, so one category group has many categories. And the categories, I mean, this is a too-many, but it's not optional. It can just be empty. No, it can't even be empty. Okay, does it have to be ordered? That really doesn't matter. But here in the category, when the relationship, so when the category is deleted, we don't want the group to be deleted, so nullify makes sense. Then in the category group, when the group is deleted, do we want all categories to be deleted? Because they have to belong to a group. I would say yes. So this cascades. So when a category group is deleted, all categories are deleted. Okay, this is the relationship. Now the group, obviously we have to give it a name as well. We could actually extract one of these two, color or icon, to the group. So all have the same here, or we just give it another level of color at least. Okay, this depends really on the UI. So let's get into UI quickly. So I'm thinking about, let's just create a new design file. I'm just thinking about a UI where we have, let's go back. So we have a category, we have timer. So let's just create, this is like the entry of a timer. And in the entry of the timer, we might want to have a category label. Let's give that a different background color. And another category label. Something like that, and maybe even another category label. Let's make that blue-ish. So we have 3 category labels, and then on them, obviously we're going to have the name written. So we could just, okay, let's go in there. Let's call this cat1. Doesn't really matter. Cat2 and cat3. It's going to be very simple kind of design. It's not a real design. It's just for thinking. So we have these 3 categories, and then they, as you can see, they have a background, and I might want to add, oops, some small corner radius here to make them look a little nicer. So this is the category. Now the question is, how can we represent? And it's going to also have an icon here. So imagine there's an icon here. Let's add another rectangle. So this is the icon of the category. And we have the same here. And we have the same here. So what we want to do is we want to also show basically the group of category it belongs to. And it could be presented like below the category with something like this, where I just have another color, and this could also have something like this. Could be something like this, and every of these would have this. But then it's getting a lot colorful, a lot of colors. We could also remove from the category the color and just use the icon only for the category, and we use the color for the group. So the color would mean the group. For color blind people, we would need to provide another like kind of texture here for this. Or yeah, that's not perfect to have it only the color to indicate that. Another thing we could do is we could have something in front of it, something like that, that specifies the group of the category thing. But then it has a color and could even have a shape or something. So this could be like, I don't know, this is a rectangle, this is a triangle. This kind of works, but then you don't really know what the group is. Okay, I'm not really sold. It really depends on the UI how we should be doing the split between category and category groups. But I think I want to keep both color and icon on category, also for color blindness, because if you can't see the color, then the icon is going to help, and color will just make it nice for most people to distinguish from others. And we have a name here. It should be string, by the way, not optional. And we want to be able to somehow say on the category group, or somehow show on a category group, which could be indicated like this. Let's go different shape. Okay, does this shape help? I'm not really liking that. No, it's making things very complicated. Should be easy. So we might need to create something around it. So maybe we have to do something like that, without anything here as a fill, but with a stroke, and then something like that, which goes around this, maybe a little larger, maybe like this, and then we just add like a title here. Let's say like group 1, obviously much smaller, change it. If we do it like this, this thing could also get a color, but no, probably not a color. Should stay on a grayscale. And then maybe this could get an icon though. Then we have an icon here and an icon there, also not great. Maybe just a name, maybe just a name. Just give it a name and make it visually somehow choosable. Maybe we will have some kind of yeah, maybe just a small arrow that's showing down, something like that. Let's turn it around. So it's clear that you need to choose here from a drop-down for that group and for the other group as well. Does that kind of work? I mean, this doesn't have to be the final view representation, but it's good to have an idea what your UI might look like when you're building a model. So it's always good to have some kind of drawings here. Oops, let's go back. I think that was representing the timer. Let's also label that timer 1, something like that. So this is our timer. And we can choose the groups. And the categories themselves, they are the real ones, but we group them and we just give the groups names. Yeah, let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep it like this. The groups are very simple. I'm thinking about folders in a file structure. So we have folders, and here's the category. Let's close this, but let's give it a name so we know what this was. File, edit, let's rename. Oh, let's just go here and just rename it here. This is like the category model of the open focus timer. Category model brainstorming. So it was just helping with brainstorming, but well, now we have the category group just with a name. And the group is always tool1. Cool. Now we can have this multiple levels, and the user can define as many groups and categories as they want, and this should work with multiple dimensions. Next, Pomodoro timer. I think this is clear. Then we have reflection, free text field for summary, for problems, blockers, learnings. So this is one of the key features, and the question is, do we add those to the timer directly, or do we store them separately? So what we did want to have is we wanted to have like an auto-completion kind of thing for the titles of the timer. Maybe that's possible by, yeah, we don't need extra fields or something like that for that. For reflection, let's just add the field. So we want to have a field for a summary. And let's actually have a look into our summary. We have a summary here for the stream itself. And we have the session summaries. And you can see that the different sections we have here is progress summary, problems, blockers, learnings, ideas, and next steps continue. So let's add just these fields. And we want to add them to the timer. So on a timer, we want to have a summary. But I'm just asking myself, if I just add a text field here, so let's do it like this: summary, text field, like a string. Are we going to run into problems with like markdown, like kind of like making it possible for users to use bold text and things like that, add links? We could do all that in a string, and then I could like format it later, or we could maybe use like a rich text type or something like that. Do we need that? And we will have multiple fields, and all of them will need to support the same thing. We will have summary, problems, blockers, and some of them also make sense to be kind of a list. So I might want to have in the summary like specific items in the summary, not just the plain text. Actually, I forgot to add a title to the timer. So this is the, let's call it session purpose, session goal, something like that. So before I'm starting a session, I'm setting a goal for the session or a topic or something like that. Title, what I'm going to do, what I'm planning to do. This is session plan, session purpose. What's a good name for this field? Timer, a timer focus, focus topic, focus topic, focus topic. The thing to focus on. It's not optional. You have to specify it before you can start it. Maybe we should make it optional. And this is the thing that needs to have auto-completion, but we can just search this field in a database. Should we make it optional so you can start a timer without a focus topic? But I could also just set a default focus topic then. I think I will keep it non-optional. And let's get back to the summary. So this is going to be a simple string, simple title. And we might actually want to have at the end of the session the things you have accomplished. And it's going to be a list of things. So actually, I think we don't want to have this kind of, I want to have it all as a list. all the learnings and things like that should be a list of strings, and you can still add comments. You can still should we have long text? You could write long text, but you typically don't want to write long text because it's going to be more often more useful, I think, if it's like single items that are relatively short. It's easier to write, and it's also easier to find later and read up things. If you want to write a long text, like we could add a note field, but do we really need that? I think we keep the note field for later in case we need it. But for now, let's just be very specific. Let's let this open focus timer be opinionated on how to use it, and therefore for this use cases it should be really great. So focus topic is something you can set. Then we want to be able to set we want to have like progress points, or yeah, I mean, you're going to do something and you want to progress points, but it's going to be an array. And for this to be an array, I will actually create a new entity. And this is, the type is just going to be for like being able to store items here which are related to some form of text. Let's call it rich text entry, rich text, just rich text. Because we want to support markdown, links, and things like that. Rich text item, rich text entry. Let's call it rich text entry. And this is just going to consist of the rich text, or the text. The text, which is just a string. And we might want to store the time you have created this. Do we need that? Maybe to order, but if you want to order yourself. Yeah, let's just keep it this, and let's make it non-optional. Rich text entry. And we want to add now a relationship to rich text entry, which is the progress points. Progress points. So the points you've progressed on to rich text entry, and it will not have an inverse. Then we might also have rich text entries for what else do we have here? For problems or blockers. How should we call them? Problems? Blockers? Let's call it problem points. Problems. Again, to rich text entry, and both of them are too many relationships because you can have many. And a rich text entry is going to belong to a timer. But it might not be clear what the inverse is. So maybe we just don't need to add this at all. Well, let's add the timer anyways. It's a 2-1 relationship. It's not optional. And here we have no inverse. Makes also sense because there is no clear inverse. Or is there? Yeah, this automatically sets the reverse here, and we don't want that, so let's set no inverse. Same here. So we will have problems, progress points, we will have learnings. Let's call it learnings. And we will have next steps. Learnings also rich text entry, the next step also rich text entry. Both of them too many relationships. And for the deletion rule, if I delete a timer, I want to delete all the learnings that are related to that. So I wanted to set to cascade for all of them. And are they optional? Why not an empty array? I mean, an empty array is not optional. I'm not really sure. We might need to adjust this, but for now I believe we don't need these to be optional. we just use empty arrays. And this is also not optional. This is a text, rich text entry. Cool. Now we can store learnings, next steps, problems, and progress points on a timer. Let's continue. What else do we have as requirements? So we can now reflect with these points. We do have a history, statistics. I remember in the session app, there was also a question of how did it feel, how productive you were in that session. That was kind of useful, but at the same time, I wasn't really sure how you can use that. But the cool thing about it is you can like, how to say, you can like, it has a meaning. You have like 4 groups of things. And this way you can say like you were productive more on these times, more on these times. That's actually what the session app also does. The question is, do we want to have this feature? Do I really need it? I don't want to just copy every feature just because it's there. For myself, do I really care and want to know at what times I'm most efficient? I'm not really sure. It's not like, I mean, it's a really subjective rating anyways. I think I'm going to let go of it. But is there anything that we can do with these learnings, next steps, problems, progress points, problems? Is there a better term for problems? Something that makes you slower. Something that makes you slower. Something that makes you slower. Basically, it's a bottleneck, but it's not really a bottleneck. Let's keep with problems. Roadblocks. Roadblocks. Thank you for that suggestion. Roadblocks. Sounds like it's very traffic related. I mean, if we want to use roadblocks, we could use blockers right away. But I don't want to say that it's a blocker because not always. For example, while I was developing here, while I had some issues with like some features like build scripts for Bardic Craft or something like that, they don't really block me from being able to continue in that regard, that I can't continue at all. It just is a problem that I have to fix at some point, or something that slowed me down because there was a feature not working properly. For example, Xcode Crashed all the time in the last stream, and thankfully it's not happening now, but that was like more a problem, I think. And blockers can also be called problems, right? So I think problem is the more general term. And this is just the model layer anyway, so we can give other names when we actually implement the UI. So I'm going to stick with these. And as far as I can see, that's it already. That's like the whole model layer that we need. So we have basically designed the whole model layer, and we just need to code that now and add it to like create code around it and make sure that when we start a time tracking a timer, for example, that we can actually that we actually create and save these data. I think this should work for now. Now I have to specify where to store these. Should I store it in CloudKit and things like that? I will not do that right now. Maybe we will add this feature later. We have it in our list. So should the class definition be generated? Do I want to do it manually? I think that class definition should be generated. I'm just not sure if this will work with Swift packages. So let's actually test it out. I will just go back into the model target. And we can see that a lot of things are being done here. And let's clean up this code. We have the shared persistent controller. We have a preview persistent controller. This is just for showing data in SwiftUI, I'm guessing. So we might not actually need this. Let's comment this out. We have the container. This is needed, and it allows for in-memory, which is also nice. Model URL. Let's create a model. Managed object model. Container. If in memory, it makes the URL go to def null. Container view context automatically merge changes from parent. load persistent stores, and then we have, actually this is a trailing closure. I'm not sure why we're not using the trailing closure syntax here. Store description error. If store descriptions are replaced, implemented with code to handle the error appropriately. Fatal error cause application to generate a crash log. Yeah, that's clear. Typical reasons for an error. Does not exist, device out of space, and things like that. This is error handling. This is definitely something we want to do, but later. Implement proper. Oh, let's just do not yet implemented here. So we get a warning. Okay, this one we really don't need, I think. It's just creating some data. We will set this up ourselves if needed. There was nothing special done here. Public leg containers. I think this is looking okay. Now I just want to test if I can reference. Let's create a function, something. It's just for testing. I just want to know if I can reference the types that I've just created. So we should be able to reference a timer, for example. So let's create a new timer. And we do have a timer. And it actually works. So code generation works. The question is, can we also access it from outside of this package? Because we might need to do that. Let's go to the app. Open focus timer app. Let's import the model. It's already imported. Let's just do something like did appear. Okay, it's not available here. On appear, I mean. On appear. And we can run some code. And here I'm going to say let timer. And doesn't really seem to work model dot timer in it. Let's build. Now I have to go to the Mac app. Let's build. Does the reference work? It doesn't fail here. It just says there's no preview provider. And yeah, I was using it here. Okay, so for the previews in the content view, it's actually using this as an environment, but yeah, that's also not needed anymore. Let's build. It's building, it's running, so it has access to the timer. Cool. Can I also access the timer fields, like timer dot? Yeah, I do have access to all of these things. Let's say like seconds passed or duration. Let's just print it. Print duration. Build. Cool. This is all public, so I do have access to these things, and that's great news, because then I can actually start creating extensions for the models, so to make them easier to use. And I'm going to start with the timer. So in the database, we have actually created these fields, and the ended at, I think that's fine. That's a date. The started at is a date, and the focus topic is also fine. It's a string, but the duration is seconds. Actually, I want to have a duration as a time interval, so I'm going to provide a convenience variable for that. Let's say we have a var, and we want to have this public, and we want to have a duration here as a time interval. And we are importing foundation interval. And to do that, we're going to access in the timer the duration in seconds. And this is an integer, and we need to convert it to a double first, because the time interval is double. Or we can maybe just, this is in seconds anyways, and time interval also is in seconds. So I could just go and say return seconds. We have to import HandySwift for that. Return seconds, and then we can provide a double here. Let's provide the duration in seconds. If that builds. This is the model target. Yes, we need to convert it to a double. Let's do that. And this works, and we don't need to return a statement here. Cannot convert value. Let's run again. Okay, this was a wrong error. This is actually working, so this is the the nicer API. This is now the duration as a time interval, so we don't need to meddle with unit. And the same for pause count. That should be fine. Yeah, that should be fine. We have the learnings here, which give us a rich text entry. This gives us a text. This has an inverse to the timer. And the name, the category. Okay, we might want to automatically convert this to a color, to an actual color. So let's also write an extension for, oh, let's rename this to timer actually. We might want to write an extension for the category as well. And timer extension I meant, of course. Let's write a category extension. And extension to category. Make it public, and we want to have the color. And we want to have it to be a SwiftUI color, so we might need to import SwiftUI here, which is not great because we're in the model, and I don't really want to import SwiftUI in the model. But at the same time, it's not a package that I need to define, so let's just do it. We might be able to extract it later, but here, this is the SwiftUI color. Let's just go for color. Oh, there's a typo here, extension, there we go. And this returns a color specified, and we want to also have the same for the icon image. Because what we're doing here is icon symbol name, and this is going to result in an image in the end. So the color we want to return. Let's see if there is actually an initializer with a hex code. Doesn't look like it. Okay, we'll go back to that in a sec. Let's start with the image first. So for the image, we do have an initializer which accepts a system name. And the system name is then just going to be the icon self.icon symbol name. And this is an optional. Why is it an optional? I thought it's not an optional. It's not an optional. So it's an optional because there can be times where I just am in the process of creating the model, but it's not stored yet. But in that case, I shouldn't call this. So I'm just going to do force unwrapping here. I want the app to crash even during development in case the icon symbol name isn't provided, because I want to make sure in the creation of a category that is already provided. I might actually create a convenience initializer for this. Something like public init, and then it accepts actually a SF safe symbol. So let's import SF safe symbols. And we might need to specify all these dependencies. So model doesn't yet depend on SF safe symbols, I'm guessing. Yes, it doesn't. That doesn't actually depend on anything. So let's import SF safe symbols here. Okay, so I want to say like system symbol. Let's actually create everything that we need to provide here. For a category, we need to provide color, hex, icon, and name. So color, icon, and name. Color, icon, and name. Okay, the name should be first. And with these three things, I want to actually set up the name self.name as name. The color hex code, we're going to extract from the color. I don't think it has an hex, but yeah, we will add that. So this needs to be implemented. Not yet implemented, or let's say extract hex code from an actual color object. And likewise for the icon symbol name, we're just going to go for the icon and see if I can find the symbol name. Is the raw value of an SFM symbol the symbol name? And raw value, switch self, I'm not sure. I don't think it is. Or is it? Okay, it looks like it is. 9 square. Yeah, it is. I think this is the symbol name. Cool. So this is an initializer that we can use. Designated initializer cannot be an external category. Do you mean to be convenience? Of course. Convenience initializer. Cannot assign. Yeah. Let's just go with an empty and just add not yet implemented here. Oops. Cool. And the color, same thing here. This is not yet implemented. For now, we're just going to return clear color, or let's just return something. Let's just return white. So these are things we need to implement. We need to somehow create a color from a hex string. We need to somehow, oh, this is already implemented. We can remove this part here. And this should also work. Self use before self init. Oh, okay, because it's a convenience initializer. Let's say self dot init first. This should work. Cool, this is the category, and we could do the same with everything. And we have the persistence here. Let me actually create them a folder. This is the model extensions, or just extensions, so we can put them in one place. We have the category extension. I want to have the same thing here too, so I want to have a convenience initializer, public init, or convenience init. I'm not taking anything, or actually I want to take, what do we need for a timer? Actually, for the category I'm missing the group, right? Yeah, we have to add the group here as well. Warning, add group to the initializer. Then we have the timer extension. And we're running out of time, so I'm actually going to continue implementing this next time. So let me add here, continue here as a comment. Not yet implemented. And this is basically where we need to continue. And let's actually summarize this session. So before we do that, let's see if I can commit this as like a incomplete state. Let's see what the changes are. Content view, we have removed some things. We can definitely commit that. We have added this extension. We can commit that as well. I think it should actually build right now. And it does build, so we're not breaking anything. Timer extension also. And we have changed the model. We have cleaned up this as well. And we have added the dependencies. So this is actually something we can commit. So add begin adding model extensions, and we have actually applied. So add model entities plus begin adding model extensions as code files plus clean up persistence. I think as extensions files, as code files is not needed, and clean up persistence. This is basically what we've done here. And Swift format doing its changes. So I will actually commit and push this. Now let's get to the summary part. So what is the next thing that we have done? Actually, let's just copy the text here. This is basically what we have done. So let's review the session. Fix building issues with Swiftgen and body crash. We've done this. We fixed the color referencing issue. Although this still has a problem if we're building just a package, which we defined, I think mentioned here. Yes. Then we extracted logic and state from the timer view by applying the composable architecture. We added a ticking timer when starting a button is pressed, so it's ticking down now. We also added a simple alert when a timer is up. Then we localized all text in the app, and we improved also the Swiftgen configuration. And lastly, we added model entities, plus we began adding model extensions and cleaned up some persistence. Layer, clean up persistence layer in adding model X. Cool. So some problems, SwiftUI preview still can't show colors. Learnings we had, it's possible to pass parameters to Swiftgen templates, and that's basically what I linked to. And if you have multiple languages added to your project but no localized files in the app target, localization won't work, even if you have localized package resources. That was a nice learning. I might share this even on Twitter, for example. And the next steps is clearly we have to continue with the timer extension, continue writing the timer extension convenience initializer, write extensions for all model layer types plus convenience initializers. And then the next thing we could do basically is to connect the UI we already have, which is the timer, with the database, and just make sure that when the timer is started, that we create an entry in the database. When it's paused, that we count the pauses up and things like that. So connect the timer UI to the database and store the data. And after that, we could actually, when a timer is up, we could actually add a reflection screen with a summary of the session plus, and then next up basically we could connect the reflection screen to the database. So in order to have data that we can then later use to show like a history and other things. So I think this is a good summary of what we did today, and the category actually was definitely the app project, not the open source on Fridays. And yeah, I think that's from my side here. And let me quickly check if there is anybody we could raid, but not seeing anyone doing any IT stuff who's online. So yeah, from my side, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for to everybody who wrote actually something here. So I hope you had some great time. I hope the music was fine. I hope that people who have joined in, maybe who might also watch this later on, might have learned one or two things here. And yeah, I wish you all a nice evening. And until next time, again, as a reminder, on Fridays I'm streaming as well, but I'm starting at 2 p.m. on Fridays. Next Wednesday I'll be back with this project with the part 3, and again at 7 p.m. and we'll be streaming that as well. And don't forget to follow me on Twitch if you watch this, and also I have a Twitter account. I'm seeing actually President Not Sure One. Thank you very much for following me. So welcome to the stream by the end, and don't forget to follow and also me on Twitter if you want to know and get reminded of my next streams. I might also be streaming like spontaneously at some point, I'm not sure yet. But thank you everyone, and have a nice evening. Bye.